We're at the Olympic Stadium in Sydney for the Swans and the Hawks. Gerard Whateley, Rob Cross, David Parkins, Stephen Gillen, and with us is Nick Smith from the Swans camp. We're mid-interview here. Nick, do you retain the faith that what the Swans do well is still achievable late in the season in 4 big weeks of footy?
Yeah, definitely, and we'll really set ourselves for the next 4 weeks. I think the brand of footy we try to play stands up in finals, and I guess that was proven last year, so we definitely got to get back to that. And as I said, last week was a bit disappointing, so we can't dish that up this week or for the rest of the year.
Can I ask you about Shane Biggs, another rookie? I think it's fantastic. The rookies have, I think we're up to like 21.6 or something of the teams that are going to play, players are going to play this week, actually come off the rookie list. Another one, think from memory, it's a Melbourne boy, Ringwood out that way. I think he's a reasonably tall, maybe outside midfielder. Would that be a description of him? Yep,
I reckon good description. He's pretty fit, pretty quick, uses the ball well, plays probably more outside, so I'd say he'd play sort of down back wing tonight.
Yep. And pretty excited about it, I suppose, getting in at this last time.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon it's a great thing for young players to get a couple of games, even if they're not cementing their spot in the side. It gets them ready for pre-season next year and know what's required and that kind of thing. So it's a really good opportunity, although some blokes are missing tonight for Biggsy and a couple of the other young guys. It's really good that they're playing a good side in front of a good crowd.
Has there been much of a change in your game style, Nick, with Tippett? Because he's kicked 33 goals in 10 games. You do seem to go to him a lot. Maybe not so much you, it's more Jared McVeigh, I guess, and Reece Shaw when he was playing, but more and more you seem to be moving upfield and drilling the ball into the forward line. Do you just look for him, maybe not deliberately, but he's such a big presence? Do you notice that change in the way you're playing a bit?
Yeah, you're right. We have been pretty, I guess, not being too diverse in kicking. We've just been kicking to Tippo most of the time, which is might be a blessing in disguise, Tippo not playing tonight actually, and getting a few of the other guys like Jesse White and that kind of thing going. I think coming to finals, we don't want to rely on one bloke, so if we can get multiple goal kickers, which we should do tonight, could be a help for us.
This ground, compared with home, you call this home away, or how do you look upon this stadium?
Yeah, it's great.
Good,
yeah, looking forward. It gets a bigger crowd here and more of our supporters, so that's a good thing. It's good playing at the SCG as well.
Nick, you mentioned you guys have to go about some better systems this week in terms of last week and hitting back. What are some of the things you've focused on with the Hawks and curbing what they do? Yeah,
definitely. We didn't move the ball too well, but I guess it starts with our defence as well. They move the ball pretty easily. They beat us around the contest. So there's a lot of things to work on this week.
Are you looking forward to finals?
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
When do you start? Everyone says a week at a time, and I totally understand that. But when the finals loom and you know you're going to be part of it, when does it sort of start to kick in for you?
I'm not sure. We are, focusing on this week, and then we'll focus on next week without thinking about anything else. But it's an exciting time to play. It's the best time as a footballer for sure.
And the prospect of meeting the same team 2 weeks in a row, I mean, that's just weird, let's be honest.
Yeah, it is weird. What can I say? Looking forward to it next week, getting out there myself.
Good stuff. We look forward to seeing you out there as well.
All right, thanks, guys.
Nick Smith with us on Grandstand AFL tonight, just the 1 week out of the team, and he'll be back for the qualifying final, which in all likelihood will be Friday night and potentially against the Hawks again. So we settle into just clipping off a couple of other topics along the way. David, we spoke this time last week about Essendon and about the likely outcomes. It happened in hugely dramatic fashion during the week. A coach suspended for 12 months, a team prohibited from participating in the finals. As an elder statesman of the game, what did you think of the events?
I've been saying to a lot of people, and you'll be questioned as I've been questioned about the whole scenario. And when older you get, the sadder, and you cry more. You used to cry a lot when you're 60, you cry more when you get to 70. And this is probably, Jared, the saddest time because of the individuals that I know that have been involved, like Doc Reid. I know James reasonably well. Simon Goodwin is coaching his first game at the weekend, and you know how it's affected them personally when their careers and their lives. You think of Doc Reid, who's been a wonderful medico for not just footballers but for his own community of people. I played football with him at Hawthorn. He's been a long time mate of mine, and they get caught up in all of this for whatever reason, and I think he tried reasonably hard, as Bomber did, to try and alert people and stop what was happening, and yet they still get plastered publicly in a way that they'll probably have to carry for the rest of their life. So I get a bit sad and morbid about the game facing up to these things, and probably more, and you understand it better than I do, but if Asada Dank actually appears and tells the truth under oath, or if that's what he has to do, if he doesn't, he's up for perjury. If he doesn't appear, he's $5,000 a day. So there's probably more to play out. I hope that the players at this stage are going to be free of any penalty that might happen, because walk into a club as a young bloke and you probably do what you're asked to be done. You can say, well, we want to know better. And I told the story the other day that I was walking out of the Hawthorn Football Club in the middle 60s as a young bloke, just got in and starting to play some half reasonable football, and I was limping, and I remember the doc saying, "You're still limping, what about that Intercet? Haven't you been taking your Intercet or Tandril or whatever it was in those days?" And I said, "Yeah, I've been taking the doc, but I'm still got fluid on my knee." He said, "Hang on a minute," and he goes out and he gets this big red pill. He throws to me. He said, "Take this with a bucket of water every 3 kilometres, you'll be okay." And I thought that was a bit strange. It was called Brufen. And I went home, and I've got a brother who's a pharmacologist. Now, this is just me. I'm not too smart, but I thought, no, I better ring him. So I rang my brother Des and said, "Nip, I've been given this new tablet called Brufen." He said, "Oh, that's that new anti-inflam." I said, "That's the one." He said, "Just hang on, I'll go and check the side effects registered in Victoria for the last 12 months. So he disappeared, came back on the phone. He said, "Oh, you'll be right." He said, "You'll be right, take it." He said, "Severe diarrhoea to death, you'll be okay," he said. So I at least had the sense, but I was in a family with a pharmacologist, and I probably didn't consume anything in those days without talking to him first. But I can imagine a young player going in and being confronted by a doctor or a sports scientist or a coach and saying, "Bend over, we're going to jab you in the backside every 3 days for the rest of your life while you're here," and you probably do it without thinking too much. Now, that's a strange thing to say, and you think intelligent footballers who have been educated in the way they have about the difficulties round the game thought it might have done better. But I really do understand, and therefore I'm a bit sad about the implications to a lot of very good young men and their families as a result of this. So I think the league probably, and I didn't know you could negotiate your way through that, but I think in the finish the negotiations were fair and reasonable in my opinion, except for maybe Doc Reed, and that's the one that I really, and he's obviously thought that offended and he's going to the Supreme Court on the basis of it. I probably think that he should, because it might have ramifications for his professional work in the future. So I guess, Jared, we might have to face a similar thing in my lifetime. I haven't got that many decades to go, but for me it was the most harmful period for football that I can ever remember in a negative sense. Most harmful thing for the people in it, the game as a whole. It certainly asks questions of us as a sporting fraternity. So I think hopefully there'll be some really good come out in terms of the governance of the game from this point on.
Stephen, how have you looked in on it as a current player?
Yeah, we've been a bit removed up here. It's a different environment. You're not slammed with the papers and media as much. So looking from it far, from a player's point of view, you feel sorry for the players and you just worry about their welfare and the pressure they've been put under this year. And in terms of what David said, I agree. As players, your club's got you think the best interests at heart, and they want to put you on the best program and get the best performance out of you, that you think you're doing the right thing. So secondary to that is, you worry about the integrity of the game and make sure it's an even playing field for everyone and everyone's doing the right thing, and you assume that that's the case. So as players, I think that's been our two main worries out of the whole thing.
And last one before we get into the preview, because the Hawks are just breaking through the banner. David, on the notion of a first up final at Geelong, which hasn't happened since they played at Corio Oval in 1897. They hosted a VFL final, but the prospect is if the Cats play the Dockers in the first round of the finals, it will be at Kardinia Park.
And I can tell you one thing, I'm a lot more excited about that. I got a place down the Bellarine Peninsula than Fremantle are excited about playing there. I can tell you that by the reaction. I cannot believe, Jared, I cannot believe that when this was floated, that they came out with such a negative stance. That'll be worth 7.5 goals to Geelong, I reckon, by saying anything about it all. You cop and play where you haven't got a home grand final, you play with it. And I don't think it's such a bad concept. I'm not sure why they're so worried. That's almost identical to the Subiaco ground where they never get beaten. Just the fact that Geelong never get beaten at Geelong is probably the major reason for saying, we're not coming.
Yeah.
No, we'll take it. Stay home and give them a walkover.
I did read one attempt at analysis today which suggested that Fremantle has a home ground advantage at Subiaco, but Geelong has too much of a home ground advantage at Kennedy Park. I thought, did you read that sentence back before you published it?
Much
of a home ground advantage.
Too much of a home. That is ridiculous, isn't it? And it's a good place to play at Geelong, isn't it? Particularly if you're a Geelong player.
Okay, let's get into the task at hand. We'll be at Kennedy Park tomorrow, and the Mayor of Geelong, you'll be shocked to know, David, is in favour of the home final, and the Mayor of Geelong will join us.
Oh, he will. And you talk about the $5 million that the community are going to make on the back of it, the economic advantage to Geelong.
I think the city of Geelong is a buzz.
Oh, they would be
say,
too.
a buzz. Okay, the Hawks and the Swans tonight. Our expert commentators David Parkin and Stephen Gillum to bounce around a few ideas about what's going to take place.
I don't know how you feel, Stephen, whether you've got a method. You think the group which Sydney are about to run through the banner are going to produce is going to be, strong enough, good enough, informed enough, confident enough to actually make a game of it? Do you sense we're going to get a real game, or do you think it might be struggle street for Sydney tonight?
I think they'll match it inside with each other, David. I worry a little bit about the run of Hawthorn on the outside spread here at ANZ in the hot conditions that we're going to get tonight, and just their firepower up forward and their versatility within the two teams tonight. I think Sydney will give us an honest contest for 4 quarters. I just think that Hawthorn will have the polish on the outside and be able to give their forwards a better look at it tonight.
Because there's been a bit of an argument, Stephen. I agree totally with what you've said, but there's a bit of an argument that the one weakness that Hawthorn have, and you might say, well, Sydney is significantly better, and this might give them some dominance, is their speed on the spread. Their speed, when they win clearances, that's Hawthorn. They don't get away as quickly out of that as Sydney do. And then the reverse way, when Sydney are very good at clearing stuff, they are fantastic at stoppages, etc. They actually get on their bike quicker than Hawthorn will be able to chase them down. So I think the one advantage, if they don't get inside ball often enough and well enough, their clearance work either side is going to put, I think, Hawthorn in terrible disadvantage if they don't. I reckon this will be, you're absolutely right, I reckon the stoppages, clearance work, effectiveness of that for either Sydney or Hawthorn might be the defining difference between the two sides tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of the grand final last year, absolutely no doubt that Sydney spread better than Hawthorn. That's what won them the game. I think Hawthorn over the summer addressed that with a few personnel in terms of Hill, Smith, Bruce, Jed Anderson, who's a sub tonight for Hawthorn, and Shane Savage will be able to complement their inside grunt players. Really well tonight here at ANZ compared to McVeigh, Bolton, McGlynn, Parker, Tom Mitchell. I just think tonight Hawthorn have got a better mix than Sydney.
And the one real, you'd think, with Tippett going out, that's going to help a defence which has been under a bit of pressure at Hawthorn. Got better, no doubt, by a lake. I think they're quite a strong combination now. But the other end, Grundy and Richards. Richards take probably Buddy. That would happen. And Grundy will take Roughhead. Would that be right?
Yep.
And I guess those two individual, if you like, contests between 4 fantastic footballers. You wouldn't mind if it was in Hawthorn's front half a bit tonight to actually see the Roughhead. I've been really pleased with Buddy. Buddy's actually got to the point where he's become a very team-oriented forward, and seeing that goals are kicked more than kicking them himself. And I think it's been a wonderful coaching achievement because it tend to be centred around him. I think he thought that way too. For him to be now running to create space, running out to provide the opportunity for Gunston and Roughhead and company down there, I think that's been a wonderful coaching effort that I'm not sure that Alistair Clarkson's getting great credit for, because I think it would have been difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of Buddy getting outside the 50 arc at times, it was a little bit hard, especially when he was kicking so many goals and getting so many shots. And a lot of the time he had 2 and 3 against him, which takes his energy out, and his ability to get up and outside the 50 all the time with 2 and 3, having to compete against 2 and 3 all the time is difficult. But I agree, in terms of Ruffy's amount of goals, I'm watching tonight as to how many he kicks in terms of giving Jezza a target on Sunday. But that's interesting how that's worked. Gunston gives them another foil as well, and Dean Rampy possibly will have to go to him. And if we think it pans out the way it does, they're going to have their hands full keeping Hawthorn to a score that they can
manage themselves, particularly without Tippett being there. Look, what amazed me, I remember talking to Sam Mitchell about he worked for years to get a fitness level to beat Crawford. And I remember he knocking on my door, he was so proud to tell me that he'd knocked Crawford over in the pre-season competition, and we give each other a bit of a cuddle. That was fantastic. He said he'd won 3 years before to do that, and I said that's fantastic. He said excuse my French. He said that other bloke, he said he beat the both of us, and I thought, well, if he's playing full forward like that all the time, to get him out and use the running capacity to run people off their feet, it's not a bad weapon to have when he has the capacity, endurance passing, buddy, like a bloke half his size. So there's a wonderful athlete, but he's become an extremely good footballer. Yeah,
it is frightening, the ability and talents he does have, and absolutely, I think he at times relishes that opportunity to get up through the midfield and the freedom and just to play his own natural way. It's probably how he did when he was a kid, and enjoys that a lot as well.
I'm looking forward to some straight track greyhound racing tonight. One plays the lure, one plays the greyhound. I'm talking about Isaac Smith and Gary Rowan, up and down the wings. That could be quite a spectacle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Isaac's definitely the best runner at Hawthorn in terms of the time trials and his GPS results that come out of games. Just blows everyone else away, and I know that players that play on him think exactly the same thing. They just run off their feet by the end, and he can just go and go and go. And I think he's going to be a player, in the future with reduced rotations, that he's going to be able to stay out there, much like Tom Scully is for us, and just be able to run players off their legs.
And how do you feel about that? I mean, it wasn't a real cutback, was it? I think they're averaging about 140. It's come back to 120 with, you suggested, Jared, 12 on that, isn't it?
9 and 1, so it's really 130.
130. And it's interesting, I think I'd let people know on the television last night, I sat with the coaches when they talked, somebody slipped out that once you get over 130, you start to actually make errors in using the interchange, and that they have a player on they don't want, or they have two players off, they haven't got them in the right position. So they actually came to an agreement, the coaches. It was, I laughed my head off, no one was going to admit it, and then they all admitted it. So they've got probably what they want anyway, and I'm not so sure that we've got what we want. We want to watch the better players stay on the ground for longer, we selfish people who are watching the game. So I wouldn't have been too unhappy just quietly. I don't want to be against the coaches saying I'm the president of the association, but I would have been happy to go back to 80, but they've got it 120. They'll now view it and see what happens over the next 2 years, and they might come back to 100. You never know. So at least they're doing some validated research and to see the implications of this to the players and to what we look at as we watch the game.
You mentioned Gary Rowan before, who showed good signs in his first game back, but he was a fair way from it last week. I feel like tonight's really important for him.
Yeah, look, on this ground probably. No, this ground probably same sort of playing area as Geelong. I was really disappointed. It was the second game up.
Which is hard.
It always, well, you understand it, Jared. It's like the horse second up after a spell. You'd like to think that this opposition, because of his absolute speed, he should be able to make, if he's reasonably fit, and they tell me he is, he should be able to make enough play today to become a really good working part of this team. If he doesn't, they have a problem.
He had a quarter and a half, I think it was, against St Kilda coming in on a sub, and some of his running was exhilarating. Look, at his best, his pace is quite frightening, but whether he can replicate that. They were very, very careful with him, though, I think. They gave him every opportunity to get completely fit. They didn't rush him back, so you would think he's pretty much at full fitness.
What we want him to. The game, not only Sydney, but we in the game want him to. He is a real talent. I saw him play as a kid. Quickest bloke I've probably ever seen on a footy field, over 15 or 20. I've never seen anybody accelerate to the speed he has and still be able to manipulate and handle the ball. We need those people in Australian football, and I was so delighted because it was a bad break. We all know how bad the break was. Very few people come back with the natural speed that they had before. So let's hope that he does get a good game in his belt, because we want to see more of him.
Who are you tipping, David?
Well, I'm tipping Hawthorn. If Hawthorn don't win in these circumstances, then that would create some problems in their minds, I think, for next week. Next week will be a different kettle of fish, but they need to get up with a good, strong win tonight. All Sydney need is a good, strong performance.
Stephen?
Yeah, I'm with David. I'm tipping the Hawks, driving to the game, thinking about it. I thought, probably pretty comfortably in the end by about 5 goals. I got to the ground, Tippett's out. That reconfirms to me probably the Hawks.
Rob?
Look, I'm going to be accused of hometown bias here, but I think
you're not picking Sydney.
I'm going to pick Sydney by a goal.
Good stuff. All right, I'm with the Hawks. So we've got a 3-1 split, which is better than the unanimous call.
Thank goodness
That's panned
for that,
out
Rob.
quite well. God bless you, Rob. Okay, Grandstand AFL. We enter round 23 this Friday night. It is Hawthorn and the Sydney Swans, a precursor of surely what's to come in September. You're with Rob Cross.
Umpire holds the ball aloft. Not a huge crowd in attendance, which is a little bit disappointing. Maybe they're waiting and going to save their pennies to travel down to Melbourne next week for the qualifying final against the same opposition you would think. It's Hale up against Mumford at the first tap. With Max Bailey out for the Hawks. Mumford won it, got it straight to Kieran Jack inside 50. Here's Morton and bounced off his chest. He had Stratton right on his hammer. The handball came from Burgoyne. Stratton back into traffic towards Burgoyne. Strong tackling by the Hawthorn defence. Hodge lays a tackle. Bird goes in for the Sydney Swans. It's 50 metres out. Shrugging the tackle. Kennedy wants to go back to Mumford. Clever control of the football. It was behind him for a moment. Over the head there of Bolton, the goal square. Running towards the boundary line. Lake will see it over. But it's in the right forward pocket for the Sydney Swans. Good intensity. 30 seconds gone first quarter.
Rowan's actually started deep. It looks like he might be playing as a deep in the forward line to run up. That's an interesting one. More like a Gunston.
Swans have each, both ruckmen out at Pike, wins the tap to the back. Franklin is sliding in. He got caught with the foot. He had to release it. Burgoyne's kick goes just a little way. Puopolo's after it. Bird was after him. They jar it free. Biggs works it around with a hand pass back to Bird. He gives it back to Rampy, who goes backwards to Richards. He'll chip it up into the midfield. They give some ground to reset the angle. And Everett has it right in the centre of the ground. He's on the high ball to full forwards. Pike goes up, can't take the mark. It spills the way of Stratton. He's caught in a 2-man tackle. As soon as it lands, he'll be thrown up. 15 out from goal.
Well, they're not like boxers prancing around just having a bit of a tip-off. They're right into full-blooded Firkins.
Pike and Mumford once again, straight down the throat of Lewis at the fall for Hawthorn in the Bruce direction. He's got a couple of Swans to beat, and Richards is one of those. The taller man wins. Rampy was there to lend assistance. Richards has started well. He's drifted all the way down to half forward. Swans dominating the opening couple of minutes. Squares the ball into the middle and finds McVeigh. Wants to play on quickly. Was quickly closed down by the Hawthorn defence though, and he's right in the middle of the Olympic Stadium, kicking to the northern end in the first quarter. The kick on the bounce in the white direction, got Gibson wearing him very, very closely. Birchall loops on over the top to Smith. He's taken down in a strong tackle. Gibson picks up beautifully, gives back to Birchall. The left footer goes by hand instead to Franklin on the wing. Buddy undecided, loops a handball over the top. Here's a chance for Hawthorn. They're going to 50 for the first time through Roughhead. Dummies the handball, comes to Sewell, goes back by hand to Smith, who's got busy, to Hodge, the danger man, 70 out, left half forward. Lovely kick, Spanger was the late inclusion for Bailey, trickles off hands. It's a behind the first score of the night. Hawthorn lead, 2.5 gone first quarter.
It's a terrific run and crisscross and receiving of hand passes then by Hawthorn.
Kicking was a good one for Bird. And he misses off the short pass to McGlynn, off to Malcheski, kick around the broadcast wing. Mitchell made the spoil on Mumford, wasn't a bad effort, and Hale does the crumbing. He feeds it off to Mitchell and Hodge, and he goes backwards. Stratton, he'll give a little bit more ground to Mitchell. Stands against the tackle of Rowan. He was caught low. There's no free kick. He bumbles it into the middle, but it should come off. Franklin feeds Gibson. Hawks back inside the 50. Not the best of kicks. Charging onto it is Smith. Hand pass to Roughhead. Has a flying shot at goal, but it rolls away across the face and out of play.
Just the pressure of both sides at the moment, forcing each team to go backwards, take ground into handball when they'd rather kick.
Now it's the Swans' defence under pressure. Mumford will take the ruck. Favours him. Hale allowed him to go in for the tap. Dropped it at his feet. The Swans trying to clear through the back pocket. Hawthorn forwards piling in on top. Clearing ball from Mumford, close to the boundary line. Pike there with Lake. Lake spoils and then claims the mark down at ground level. It's Pike to Cunningham in for the game tonight. Goes backwards there to Biggs in for his first match and is involved in a good passage of play which gets it to the wing, but the gold and brown jumpers surround the footy and Gibson receives from Birchall at centre half back. Shannon Byrne, welcome to you on the boundary. Looks a little slippery.
Yeah, slippery underfoot, but it's not from the dew. I think the grass has been wet later this afternoon. 22.8 degrees down here, boys.
Sewell has it on the wing and will send it forward for Hawthorn.
Oh, it didn't come off at all. It sort of landed between two of them, and Mumford was able to intercept, and the Swans come forward. Biggs delivers up now for White at centre half forward. There's nobody standing the mark. White didn't go. Instead, he waited for the pass. He goes into the pocket. He's just overkicked McGlynn. Got a hand to it, but couldn't pull it in. Sewell is onto the crumb in the back pocket for the Hawks. Out to Hill, and the pass is good for Lewis. So no damage done from an awful kick going forward.
Yeah, well, Sewell's was just as bad going the other way. Sewell's turnover was terrible.
Hill has it on the eastern wing for the Hawks. There's Biggs, who's been busy in the last 30 seconds or so, dances up and down to the mark. Hill is going to go straight down the line inboard to Sewell. He marks on the edge of the centre square. And he sends it back inside defensive 50 to Lake, who has plenty of space. He'll flip a handball over the top to Burgoyne, who was absolutely brilliant towards the end of last season in that game at the SCG between Hawthorn and Sydney. I think in the last quarter he won the game for them almost single-handedly. The Hawks got up by a goal or so. Duray chips inboard, finds Hodge, who's had a few possessions early. Lovely left-footed Hodge kicks up towards the danger zone. Hale pushes his man out of the way, but it is a push. But he got Mumford out of the way, and Mumford takes the free.
Only about 10 minutes before it arrived.
So still just a behind for the Hawks. Mumford slips the hand pass to McVeigh. Kick on the way out's a good one for White. At the defensive 50, and the Swans look to go straight up the middle. Hand pass to McVeigh, who came on the follow-up. Has to kick around the corner. It's not quite going to come off. O'Keefe tried to bat it on. Smith stood against it. Smith gets it for the Hawks. O'Keefe wraps him up, though. It's in dispute. Jude Bolton gets in there to tackle. And it will be stuck on the outer wing. Will have to be balled up. We've gone 5 or 6 minutes for one behind.
The way everyone's turning it over is there's just they're playing it between the arcs at the moment. Massive floods both sides.
Smith mops up, defensive side of the pack, kicks towards half forward. Savage in front, takes a strong mark in front of McVeigh, who's had a terrific season across half back. Outpointed that time. In it comes towards the forward pocket. Richard slipped over. Roughhead, almost the mark, not quite paid. Dropped at the last moment. 15 from the Hawks goal. Rampy spoils over the top, and we'll have a ball up. Just 20 out.
Ruffy not happy, thought he marked it.
No, he thought he marked it, didn't he? I thought he did too.
Again, some pushing there. Pike against Hale. The left forward pocket for Hawthorn again. Strong tackling. Kennedy waits for it to come out. Hodge, I think it is, tries to wrench it out, but the umpire's forced to come in. It's not going to be moved.
Steve, you wouldn't think they could keep running that distance, everybody between the arcs, could you? It's just too hard.
No.
Hale with the tap. Pike with the clearance out toward the boundary. And it bounces in the field of play and then spills over to be thrown in.
Sydney tend to have a lot of success pushing right up the ground, and when they've had speed, as in might be why Rowan's playing so deep to get the paddock out the back.
Yep.
Stephen Gillam with David Parkin on grandstand AFL. The Hawks up at half forward. Hodge goes in hard, and equally so was Parker. A heavy collision. Sewell lost it. McGlynn for the Swans. Out to White. Feeds it out the back now for Biggs.
Right.
He works it on to Everett. Now to Rampy. Good kick up to to half forward. Rowan was underneath it, but he had two pitted against him. Gibson gathers. Feeds it off to Stratton and Duray and Mitchell. The Hawks at half back combining by hand. Mitchell takes on McGlynn. Gets clear. Searing ball into the middle. Beautifully marked by Roughhead. Flips it off to Lake. Kick to half forward for Hale. Hale has a look. 2 kicks out from goal, and he measures off the first for Spanger. It was a raffle between Franklin and Spanger, and really, usually Franklin, but this time Spanger chipped in front to take the mark.
Super bit of release work by Sydney. It was like a rugby movement of the ball across, wasn't it? One after the other going wider and wider, and then Mitchell's effort that you called here was just fantastic. Get around 2 and then whack the kick in. It was a ripping kick over 45 or 50 metres. Roughhead clunked that.
It's only his 3rd game of the season, Matt Spanger. He's shown a bit every time he's been given a look. Not this time with his kick at goal, though. He hangs it out to the right. The Hawks have 2 behinds. The Swans yet to score after 8.5 minutes.
He's letting that 27 down, isn't he, Stephen Gillam? He's
Yeah,
letting that number 27 down. It's a great players wore that and would have kicked a goal every time.
Haven't mind Shane Biggs' game. He's got it again. Yeah. He's on Brewst. That's not a bad introduction.
He's down okay.
Yeah, he's got another kick. He marked from the kick in. Flying high was Lake. Mitchell at ground level. Lake has another crack. Wrapped up by Mitchell and Jude Bolton back after missing the Cats game last week. Comes off hands and goes out of bounds at right half forward western side.
The kid's bigger than Rob that I thought. He's actually a taller bird, quite athletic, tall.
Comes in about 187.
187, yeah. He's good size.
So it's Mumford up against Hale. Spanger will be third man up. In fact, it was Pike for the Swans, and a free kick's been picked out to the Canadian against Hale. Flipped back by Savage. Pike goes by hand to Everett. And Everett thumps the ball up to left half forward in direction of White. He'll have a couple to beat. He nudges his opponent out of the way. Second grab paid. Well done, Jesse White. He's 60 from goal. He'll have to go back over the mark to take his kicks, slowing the Swans forward thrust down a little. Crowd not happy, but that was the right thing to do. Malcheski wants his left, finds it. Centering ball to the smaller Kieran Jack. Was probably never going to win that battle against the masterful Sean Burgoyne.
That was an excellent defensive mark out through Lewis. Pops it over the top for Hill. Against the boundary at half-back. Hill off a step, goes for Savage. Had to make a contest and did bring it to ground. Spanger pitted against Rampy. Rampy got him high.
I think he caused it as much as Rampy did.
Spanger at half-back across to Lewis. He'll give away 30 metres for Lake, but the transfer is onto the broadcast side where White crosses counts. Birchall makes the lead. The kick won't reach him at the defensive 50. He had to take it on the bounce and hand pass it straight back to Whitecross. Needs to be better on the way out. Burgoyne has a little fumble. He's beaten to it. Good interception by Mitchell. He works it off to Brandon Jack. He's kicked blindly though to full forward, and the only man back is Lake for the Hawks.
Brandon Jack and Shane Biggs, and where they're at different ends of the ground, they look very similar. There's Biggs now with the sort of the light red coloured boots. Jack's wearing the green fluorescent. That's one other way we pick them up if they decide to share the same half of forward flank. Well done by Kieran Jack. Burning pass in the direction of Luke Parker. Missed the target though and goes out of bounds. But the Swans are to attack. They haven't scored. In fact, the Hawks have only scored 2 behinds. We played nearly 11 minutes in the first quarter. The opening match of the final round of season 2013. It's first versus fourth, and they'll probably go around next week as well in Melbourne in the qualifying final. The Swans have started brightly in terms of their intensity after a disappointing loss last week and a loss a few weeks ago here to Collingwood. As Savage, who's a Puopolo, does well to slap it forward to Franklin, who's at half back. Who can he kick to? He chips short. Back to Puopolo. Open the space for Bruce. Where's Biggs this time? Nowhere in sight. Bruce runs to 50. Can he shrug Cunningham? He can. He's had it a long time. Got to be holding the ball up or running too far. It is. Free kick. Well done, Swans, and they get it on the turnover.
O'Keefe brings it out of half back with a long kick. Suited there was Gibson. Having to go the spoil was Kieran Jack, and he did it well. Fed off by Smith to Sewell right against the boundary. It's cut off again though by O'Keefe at half back for the Swans. He feeds it across. And the kick came around the wing from Biggs again. Jude Bolton is onto it. This is a promising move in the White direction. It's just over him. Lake races back. White goes with him. White goes over the top to lay the tackle. The ball is loose. White flings his boot at it. And he wins the one-on-one duel with Lake. It looks like a goal, but the umpires are going to have a chat about it.
Yeah, the field umpire actually, instigated this decision. The goal umpire was going to give it, I'm sure. I thought he had every reason to do so, and now the field umpires interfered, I think is the word.
The question is whether it's touched the padding on the right-hand post or whether it's been touched off the boot, I suppose, are the two questions. But this is a clear goal. It was when it was kicked, and I think it will be shown to be so on the replay. The first goal, Jesse White gets it. He and Brian Lake were writhing round on the ground, and the Swan was able to get his boot to it. A goal to the Swans, 2 points to the Hawks. We've gone 13 minutes.
Great transition of play. I thought Bruce was going to run into an open goal 1 minute, and next minute's down the end. Jesse White kicking a goal off the ground. They're definitely getting ruck dominance when Spanger goes into the ruck, David.
Yeah, that's a problem,
with the big boys. Yeah, Mumford and Pike around the ground.
They might have to ask Roughhead to do more of that as the game goes on. I think they'd be sparing and looking after him, or managing him, as we say these days. It was just Bruce had almost gone his back before he got the stumbles up. He had the stumbles up. He went another 15 minutes before he hit the deck.
Great play. Jesse White showed two things: his pace to get back into the contest. Lake had a metre in front of him, and his strength to rip it away and kick the goal. Good start by Sydney. Brought the crowd to life, Shannon.
Certainly has. And just quickly, Cunningham and Biggs are two players getting their legs worked on. They're feeling this AFL first game.
Franklin inside attacking 50, right to the goal square. Quick reply here to Roughhead. Beautiful kick by Franklin. Ruffy waited in the left forward pocket, made his lead to the top of the square. And the C's opened in front of him, and he's got it just 15 out for the quick reply.
Rob, the interesting thing here, I think we talked about it, discussed Franklin and his ability, the athleticism. Here's a perfect example of 15 minutes where he's hardly got a ball anywhere near the 50. It's all been in the middle of the ground.
Roughhead does everything he can to miss it, but squeezes it through. The Hawks go back to their 2-point lead. 1-2 to 1 straight. 14 minutes gone first quarter.
And if you're going to play on Richards, I reckon if you get into a contest, he's as good an intercept marker there is in the competition, and better than Franklin at that. Franklin, I don't know whether he's made up his mind, it's just happened this way, but he is playing the kind of football that will worry Richards, and he's a good decision maker, better than I thought, and he's got it in perfectly. We mucked up the first one, but the second one, Roughhead was right in the van, and away it went. It was terrific football, and I hope they continue to use him that way. If you've got that athleticism, use it.
Hawks by 2. Middle stages now of the opening 10. It'll be Mumford against Hale in the middle. Kennedy and Lewis side by side. Roughhead has gone in as the ruck rover, and he's pitted against O'Keefe. Hodges in there against Parker. Roughhead gets first touch, but he's ripped off it by O'Keefe illegally. So Roughhead's free kick in the middle for the Hawks. The ball was kicked away, so just a slight delay before the leader of the Coleman chase can send the Hawks high and long in the Franklin direction. Spoils were made over the top. Biggs got it at ground level, but he didn't get it to his boot this time. Isaac Smith saw him coming, tackles him to ground. Ball spills the way of Burgoyne. Hand pass into open space. Brandon Jack is the first one to get there, and he finds a way through. Hand pass to Kennedy. Out the back now as the Swans build a good-looking move through the middle. It came through Parker and then went back to Brandon Jack inside the 50. No mark for Pike, and Gibson is onto it in defence. It's a handy little hand pass too. Oh, the kick was a shocker on the way out from Stratton. It's intercepted. Parker puts the Swans back to half forward. It's a bit haphazard against the boundary. Mitchell tries. They're all scampering after a loose ball.
Bit of a sigh. Should White have gone for that mark, David? I'm quite sure. I thought he had it. He let it go for Pike for coming back with the flight.
It's unusual.
So Hawthorn have it at right half back through Puopolo. Over the top to Whitecross. Oh, shocking kick by Whitecross. This will open door for Sydney. Sliding to Mark O'Keefe. Off to Mumford. Open forward line. Bolton's got space. 40 metres out. Almost directly in front. Terrible play by Hawthorn across half back. And the Swans have a chance to regain the lead.
Yeah, Whitey putting the hand up saying, "No, yeah, that's me, boys." And just brain fade, just drifted onto his left foot when he's a right footer. Had time to drill a pass downfield on his right foot, but
what a bit of a history. You can't say Steve's a great mate. He's got a bit of a history of doing that. Not getting himself balanced and going forward.
Jude Bolton for his 27th goal of the season. He's got it. He's back within one of his fellow hard nut half forward of the Swans, Ben McGlynn, which he will love. 2 straight 12 to the Hawks, 1-2-8.
Well, I've been trying to work it out. Bolton, a lot of the time, has taken the defensive role on Mitchell. He's worked exceptionally hard. I think he's gone back into the front half now, but Mitchell is a terrific stayer, as you know, and we use him every now and then to actually put the pressure on Mitchell. That was a run off Mitchell. He got back in to receive that one, which is, he must have a better engine than I ever considered him to have.
Yeah, you can't really blame Mitch for that one. Mitch, Whitey's got the ball. He's thinking, positive chance to get the ball.
Yep, go.
Whereas Jude, with all his experience in goal, saying, I'll just sag off here, get one over the back.
Stephen Gillam with David Parkin on Grandstand AFL. The tackle count, Sydney 18, Hawthorn 4. That's all the intent, David, that was missing last week at Kardinia Park.
Absolutely.
They have an early lead. Bird wins it out of the middle. Hand pass to Jude Bolton. He paddles it on to Kieran Jack. High ball up to half forward. The chase is on. Cunningham against Duray. Cunningham gets there first. Hand pass to McGlynn. Kicks the Swans inside the 50. It'll bounce over the top of Stratton. It sits for Rowan at the back. He gathers. He can't shirk the tackle of Gibson. He releases the hand pass, but it goes over the behind line for a rush score. The Swans by 5.
It's probably, Jared, their KPI, which probably indicates where they're going. I wouldn't have the world record of 113 or something in the grand final. We've never seen that before. To be doing that rate compared with Hawthorn says something about attitude.
Hawthorn through Whitecross. The kick in has it at right half back where he made that error that led to the last Swans goal. He opts to go by hand this time and has Isaac Smith for assistance. Burgoyne steps around and then kicks up towards the wing. Richards and Franklin wrestling. Pike comes in next to Hale and takes a ripping mark. Not paid. Play on. Taken away by McGlynn. Back inside 50. Kick a bit too tall. Slipped with the hand of Gibson though. Still a chance for the Swans. Mumford smashes him in a tackle. No prior opportunity there though. He wrapped him up, ball and all, 35 metres out directly in front. 19 minutes gone first quarter. Swans 13, Hawks 8.
Plenty around it. Rowan's put down just off the ball. No whistle from the umpire. Lake went up in the ruck and brought it down underfoot. Disappeared amongst a group of players. McGlynn, he's dragged the ground. Lost the footy. Hodge to Burgoyne to Whitecross. Kick partially smothered on the way out. Whistle on the play. Free kick Hawthorn's way. Bit of holding on being done by Grundy, and it's Spanger's ball at the defensive 50. He goes hard down the line. He needed it's Gunston. He wasn't able to wrench it clear. Stands in the tackle. Gives it off to Franklin. No good with the hand pass. Kieran Jack gets hold of it. Up inside the 50 for the Swans. Mumford's out, positioned by Lake. But the crummer underfoot is Parker. He wheels onto the right boot and snaps expertly at goal. Luke Parker posts the Swans third. And they skip away to an early lead. 3-1-19 to Hawthorn 1-2-8. We're in just about to hit time on of the opening two.
Done it well.
Yeah, they have.
They've done it well.
Yeah, well, that all came about because Gibson flew because he had to help out Brian Lake against Mumford, and that left Parker all free by himself at ground level. He was good enough to get the crumb and snap truly.
Bad thing out here, though. Buddy had the ball. Spanger turned his back on him. He was actually trying to give the hand pass. The hand pass was quite a reasonable hand pass, really, but Spanger, for some reason, turned his back on him and went off.
Yeah, just that connection. Only played the 3 games.
True.
Probably not expecting it.
He didn't.
A lot of people had fears for the Swans half back line when Alex Johnson went down, David, but Dane Rampey stepped straight in. What a tackle on Gunston. He's spoiling is something to behold. Off the ground goes Sewell, straight down the throat though of Everett, who marks 20 metres away defensive side of the centre. Roos stands them up.
Sorry, Rob, but they've certainly got control at the moment.
That kick, or what done by Propolo, went up one-handed, just stalled the momentum, but Jack's been good. That's Brandon Jack, and sends it inside 50 again. Mumford slides across the face of the pack, couldn't complete the mark. Sewell forced to go down. He goes on his hands and knees to try and clear. Bumped out of the jarred from the hands of the Hawthorn defender. Good strong tackling again by Sewell, and he probably saved the day in the end. Bolton was ferocious in the forward pocket, and the Swans' tenacity is frightening the Hawks a little bit at the moment. It's 19-8.
That's a good call. They have not measured up to the intensity of the early start yet, the Hawks. Mumford wins it down. Kennedy worked the hand pass out. Kieran Jack had the fly hack off the ground. Bird feeds it further back to O'Keefe, but it's all in a haphazard manner. Back into a pack it goes. Sewell had a go. Kennedy was able to release it. Brandon Jack got a kick, but he was dragged off it, and it fell the way of Whitecross. A clear disposal around the wing, but he's given it straight up. There's nothing but Swans back as Everett is able to take it and measure up the right option. He goes into the middle of the ground for Grundy, and he'll complete the transfer to the outer side. Or Rampy wasn't able to take the mark. He's confronted by Hodge. He has to get it onto his boot in a hurry. He does to half forward. Sewell is camped there though, and he steadily marks.
That's just the difference, isn't it? Dropped the ball on the mark, chest mark, put it on the ground. By the time he picked it up and went, he was under excruciating pressure. Turnover on the kick.
So Sewell's gone back into defence and he's playing a bit of a saving grace at the moment. Hawthorn desperately trying to work it forward through Popolo, slapping along in front, still has the ball in front of him, but no real control of it. Cunningham's done a few good things, lays the tackle. Play on the call. Hodge again, what a brilliant player he is. He's tied up in a 2-man tackle as he tried to charge through rugby league style. The umpire's waiting, will ping him for holding the ball.
You can say that. There was no real change. He came up with the ball. No, you might say he took them on, but there was no prior opportunity before the hands were clamped on him.
Absolutely agree with that. And McVeigh's the lucky recipient of the free kick. He loops one over the top. He's got a player on out wide. And it's Cunningham, who's only played a handful of games this year, but he's looked good. 22, nearly 23 minutes gone in the first quarter. Swans by 11.
Cunningham brought it sideways to Melcheski. From the wing, he'll chance his arm up inside the 50, and he finds Pike out on the lead in front of Spanger, who takes the mark 40 from home.
Well, there's an avenue as well, isn't it? If the ruckman can get it, and Pike and Mumford are both terrific strong marks. If Spanger is the ruckman going in, you'd use him up as they've done, and that's the end result.
Yeah, well, when the Swans get the ball, they just charge straight forward and try and isolate Spanger every time.
He's become a most reliable goal kicker, Mike Pike, from 49 metres out. He's nudged this one across the face of goal, and off hands it's through for a behind. The Swans by 12 after 23 and a half minutes. 25
goals for the year for Mike Pike. I wonder the number of Swans that have gone past the 20 mark. Goods, who's of course out injured, has 20. Bolton 27. 28 to McGlynn, 33 for Tippett, who was late withdrawal. Hills made space out in the left back pocket. After a busy opening couple of minutes, has faded out of the game. Over the top there has found teammate in Stratton. He's on the defensive 50 arc though, close to the boundary line, left half back, eastern side of the Olympic Stadium. Kicks long, hoping for a big mark or someone for a crumb. He gets the big mark, and Sewell another possession. Busy time, but he's been run down from behind, not that quick. And away goes Kieran Jack for Sydney. They can set up another goal here if the kick's good. It is. Leading was White in front of Lake, and he marks 50 out, and he's a thumping kick. He strides back purposefully into the centre square, almost back to the centre circles. When he unloads, he'll kick from about 55 for his second goal, and potentially a 3-goal lead to the undermanned Swans at the 25-minute mark of the first quarter at the Olympic Stadium. White, the neat side steps in, the shuffle, the long kick, the red and white flags go up. White's got 2, Swans have 4, and they lead by 3. 25 gone first quarter.
Well, I think you said, Rob, at the 21-minute mark, Swans were showing the tenacity, which after about 5 or 6 minutes, Hawthorn have lost. And we're talking about a 23-15 tackle count against Hawthorn, which would run them out at 90 plus for the game, almost guarantee a Sydney win on the back of just that one stat. If it were maintained.
Talked about before the game who's more important this game is, and Sydney have absolutely come out and said this is way more important to us. We spoke about going through the motions, possibly Hawthorn. They look like they've done that pre-game.
And guys, Gary Rowan, has just come off his right quad's just getting some work on by the doctors and physio at the moment.
Lewis out of the middle, patted down by Bruce, off to Hale inside the 50, bouncing ball in the pocket. Spanger controls it to ground, didn't quite work it backwards to Hill. He gets it on the bounce. Now to Roughhead, 52 out from goal. He goes the pass sideways, and he's opened the play up beautifully for Birchall to run onto. And he takes the mark 40 from home.
Jared, how good was that? He swung on the boundary side to go on his left. There was nothing on. It was going to be difficult. He came back with a right foot kick, a really difficult 45-degree kick across into the corridor, and found Birchall on the run through. I mean, it didn't look all that good off the boot, but it went exactly where it was supposed to.
He hasn't kicked terribly many, Grant Birchall.
No.
Just 21 goals in his 65 games coming to tonight. Set shot, 45 out. Did it like he's been doing it his whole career. Lovely set shot kick. And Birchall gets an answering goal for the Hawks. They're 2-2-14, trailing the Swans 4-2-26.
Well, it's starting to look a bit ugly, I thought. That's a very timely goal in the context of this game.
Yeah, and he's a crucial player. He's been out a lot this year. I think he's third up. We're talking in horse racing parlance a bit tonight. So, he's a crucial part to their back six and also their run and carry through the midfield.
Seems to be a bit of a move. Biggs now is running with Gunston. Rampy's now peeled off, but I would have thought Biggs is not the best matchup for Gunston. And that could be an avenue for Hawthorn. They look a bit undecided in the Swans' back line at the moment. No, he's going to stand him. I thought he might have been... He started well on Bruce. We'll wait and see whether he can match it with Jack. Kieran Jack now for the Swans. Kicks it inside, attacking 53 on 2 contests. The numbers with Hawthorn. Birchall's being pressured though. Brilliant tackling by Mitchell. Lewis that was the Swans Mitchell. Lewis grabs it. Handball's out there to Gibson. He's taken down in a tackle. Hawthorn desperate in defence but have the numbers. Across the face they go. Lake marks in the goal square. No one to kick it to though. Cunningham had shut down Whitecross. So Lake trots along and kicks and gets his kick smothered. A chance here for Kieran Jack. He's going to have a ping himself. Kieran Jack from the boundary line from 40. Turns around, pumps the fist to the red and white fans in the left forward pocket. Right on the quarter time siren, gets the quick reply for the Swans. And at quarter time, they lead 5-2, 32-2-2, 14.
Not a good sign, Rob, because Lake came out and lifted and there was not one alternative to go for. He stuttered and stammered because there was nobody on the spread to give it to, and his kick held on so long, was touched, came off badly, and Jack picked it up and put it away. I mean, that's on the back of his mates up the ground not providing with a reasonable option, him getting to 2 mines, goal. That's how bad.
It's the Swans by 18 points. The goal kickers, Jesse White with 2, Kieran Jack, Bolton and Parker 1 each for the Hawks. Singles to Roughhead and to Birchall. 5-2 to 2-2 at quarter time in the NRL tonight. First half in both of these games. The Brisbane Broncos 14 leading the Newcastle Knights 0 and the West Tigers 18 leading South Sydney 0. the Swans with an 18-point lead on the Hawks. This is Grandstand AFL on ABC, local radio, news radio and Grandstand Digital. It's the Swans by 18 points over the Hawks at quarter time. On Grandstand AFL, Stephen Gillum and David Parker.
Yeah, Jared, I think at times we spoke about before the game, Hawthorn just not being ready for this game and the intensity that Sydney were going to bring to the contest, and Sydney have led them to the ball, out-pressured them, out-tackled them and been a lot more efficient up forward in terms of their rucks going forward. I think that's a real strength that they're going to go after tonight, with Spanger being the backup ruckman with Bailey out. And, you know, we're used to the back six of Hawthorn slicing through with their left foot, and it's just not happening at the moment, is it, David?
No, I think you made that comment, Rob, that the tenacity of the Swans about the 21-minute mark was really great. And the two things we're not being smart as before the game. We thought the clearances might be a bit of an indicator. It's 14-5 in favour of Sydney. The tackle count 23 or 4, 15. They're two clear indicators that Sydney be absolutely delighted about. And the killer, the clearances, if they're quality, are going to really hurt Hawthorn, and that's happened a number of times. So I reckon they'll be delighted. One, that they've got their mojo back in the manner which they're going about, the clear indication which they didn't have. Jared and I watched them at Geelong last week. None of that. Their work without the ball was dreadful. They were about 1/3 of the tackle count they had in the grand final, so they weren't actually applying themselves. This is the Swans' method, if you like, and it clearly is being done without some of the better, more talented players. They would be, if it stayed and was played like this, they'd be absolutely delighted. And Hawthorn, I think, are in the middle of getting a kick in the backside by saying, look, we initially looked like we'd come to play, and for whatever reason we lost. A couple of really bad turnovers. You'll remember a couple where the ball was being controlled out. Not only did they lose, it went straight back without Hawthorn seeing it again for a goal. So, good game of footy. We need Hawthorn now to actually lift their rating in all elements of the game, or else probably couldn't win it.
Yeah, they just look a bit flat. I mean, they're away from home. Those sort of turnovers really deflate you as a team, and the back six have been working really hard in terms of those clearances. That means it's being played in the Sydney half a fair bit more, and Hawthorn are squeezing up the ground. When they come out, they've just got no options to kick to make any foray forward at all, and they'll be probably sending a number behind the play to just get that composure, be able to kick it round and get that structure up forward going.
And the Bolton Mitch one's a classic, I reckon. Mitch is playing as he has for most of the season, started at least on the half-back line. They put Bolton as a defensive forward. At this stage, Bolton's had 3 and Mitchell's had 4. That's not necessarily the way that both of them like to play, but it's probably working to Sydney's advantage in that matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitch would like to get a lot more of the ball. He's back there to set up their play, and as we said, he hasn't been able to get the ball, so they've been denied that avenue out from their back half.
So into the second term we go at the Olympic Stadium. It's the Swans 5-2 to the Hawks 2-2. Sewell had 10 disposals in the opening term, Birchall 9, Burgoyne 9. The Swans O'Keefe 8, Biggs, Kennedy and Jack all with 7. The bounce is a beauty to start the term. Mumford wins the tap and ends up with a footy. Might wish he hadn't have after he's down in the 2-man tackle. Up she goes in the middle. Hale this time, clearly down. Kennedy though jars it to the side of the pack. He stands, gives it off to Everett. The Swans will come forward first in the term. High ball up inside the 50. Spoil made away from Pike, and Lewis ghosts in defence. Hand passes it away to Burgoyne, and now Hill. High ball right next to the boundary, and no mark taken by Bruce. It's off hands and out of play.
Shannon, how's Gary Rowan? I don't like the way he's moving all that much.
Well, funny you should say that, because support staff have just had a quick word into the ear of the sub, Mitch Morton. So he's hydrating a lot at the moment. So, so it means a little message has gone to the sub just to be ready. Yeah,
I thought you said a quad injury. Let's hope it's just that, not his knee. He's limping, I think, more than usual. Hawks go forward. Malchesky's got a job on here. He's able to knock it away, but Roughhead so cleverly gets away from one. Can't get away from the second. Gives to Spanger to the top of the goal square. Everett there, though, for the Swans. Read at best. Play on the call, comes to Malchesky. He's got his left boot, was taken out a bit late. Should be a down the ground free kick. It was crude from Buddy. Very crude. Richards wants to remonstrate, so does Everett. Richards is still talking. And now Savage comes in.
He's got to report him.
Oh, gee, Franklin will want to hope Malchesky's all right here.
Yeah, I think it's...
Report him.
I think he will be all right. I don't know, Jared. What do you think?
So he's gone into layer bump and he's got the shoulder right to the head. No, he'll get points for that.
Up it goes to the wing. Sewell first to the football, and it's not becoming a very good night if it wasn't at quarter time, 3 goals down. Big news maybe early in the second quarter, 2 minutes in.
You simply can't do that when you bump these days. It's not a head clash, it's a direct shoulder to the head. Malcheski is up and back in the play, and that will go everything towards impact and the level of contact. The Hawks went forward, but they were cut off by Richards. He kicks out to the broadcast wing. It took a wicked bounce back past the field, and it's there for Smith for the Hawks. Off to Sam Mitchell, who's down in the tackle. Backward to Burgoyne, further back to Gibson, who fumbled. White is coming through. He paddles it up to the 50, gets the assist from Tom Mitchell. Lovely gather, steady and goal. And the Swans are all over the Hawks. 6-2-38 to Hawthorn, 2-2-14. And just the manner in which they drove them back while in possession until they elicited the error was something to behold.
Absolutely, their pressure's been outstanding, and we spoke pre-game to Nick Smith about who was going to step up in Kurt Tippett's absence, and Jesse White looks like he wants the job.
And Malcheski's come straight from the field. They're just checking his jaw at the moment.
So the medical report from the Swans could have a big impact also on what happens to Lance Buddy Franklin. Well, Fremantle have made 10 changes for this round of footy. The Swans have had to make a lot of changes. How deep does their talent run? It's incredible. They lead Hawthorn, the top side, by 4 goals. With a heap of premiership players out, and they go forward again to Rowan. It'll lift the house if he could take a mark. He was pushed off the football. Hawthorn defence pile in. There's a high tackle against a Hawthorn player. Was it Stratton? No, it's going to Birchall. Birchall has it directly in front of the goal. He's defending about 40 metres out, but there aren't too many options. The Swans are manning up everywhere. They sent a kill here, and what a bonus it would be going into a final against the same opponent next week. Taken there by Hale. He goes inboard to Hodge, has to come back to Franklin, who's won a free kick. He's on the wing, and now he'll be public enemy number 1 for the Red and White Army.
Franklin, he tried to balk his way around, never quite got clear. He does bomb it inside the 50. Roughhead taken out of the contest. Spanger flew, didn't mark. Duray under the pack. He's brought down with the footy. Puopolo was taken high, and it was unmissable. The tackle from Rampy ended up around the neck. Puopolo's right on his range, so he'll pop it over the top, and Lewis has a uncanny knack of getting clear 35 from goal.
And they've been so good, Jared, at not letting that happen. That's the first time when the game has stopped that a lack of concentration, because they've been so good on the spread. Exactly as we said beforehand, each time a Hawthorn player's got free in between the circles, and between the 50s, they've been going quicker than Hawthorn are able to do. I reckon that's a real problem.
Jordan Lewis, no angle, 40 from goal, left foot drop punt is good. And again, the Hawks get one against the flow. And that's been what they've been condemned to so far. 3-2-20, trailing the Swans 6-2-38. We've gone 5 minutes of the second term.
Now, the captain's Hodge has gone into the front half, which is interesting now. He's had a meeting of the 5 other forwards there. Really called them all in strongly to get the structure right. He's not often this season played as a forward, as a permanent forward. He's run in a bit, but he's sitting down there on the full forward line now, which is unusual. So this might be a different plan from the Hawks to get themselves back into this contest.
Not much talent down there, is there? Roughhead, Franklin, Hodge. Well, what a team.
And Rampy's gone back to pick him up.
And the big cheer is for Malcheski's back on the field.
Puopolo's got busy, and he sends them forward again. Here's danger. Here's Hodge. Up he goes. One hand gloved. Couldn't complete the mark. Franklin, was he pushed in the back? He spilled forward in the tackle. Play on the call. Rampy clears outside defensive 50. Chasing hard, Brust. Malcheski right on his hammer. He'll get a big cheer for that contest from the Swans faithful. He sees it out of bounds, and a slap on the back from White. And White comes in to just push and shove with a few of the Hawks, who want to talk to Malcheski about his little altercation with Franklin earlier. Half forward for Hawthorn, 65 metres out from their goal. Hale probably won the tap from behind from Mumford and goes at ground level. Farms out cleverly. Another possession for Puopolo. In front, Franklin on the bounce. Doesn't favour him. Rampy taken to ground there by Spanger. Didn't have the football. Free kick Swans. in right back pocket.
Not having a great night, Spanger, is he? I'm feeling pretty sorry for him.
27, mate. What's going on?
Yeah, Brewster's got to do something about it. He's hardly touched the ball if he's had a possession. I'm not sure.
Ramping across the face of goal for McVeigh and further on to Biggs. Out of the back pocket, he hugs the boundary for Grundy. Grundy's 40 away from the defensive goal. He brings it inboard. It had a degree of risk about it, but Tom Mitchell slides in to take the mark. He's got to find the target on the way out. He liked the look of O'Keefe, and well, he should have. In 5 minutes of space out against the boundary, the kick was perfect. O'Keefe defensive side of the middle. They're all manned up ahead. Just about ran himself into a dead end with Gunston on the mark. Has to go long up to half forward. No mark. Burgoyne under the pack. Off to Roughhead. He's overwhelmed by the pressure. Tom Mitchell works hard. Burgoyne against him. Bird comes up with a footy for the Swans. Settles himself. Lobs it up to full forward. Mumford's got plenty to fly against. Cunningham underfoot. Dispossessed by Hill in the tackle, but McGlynn is coming through. He's fed by Mumford and he makes no mistake. McGlynn strikes against his old side and the Swans put it back to 24 points. 7-2 to 3-2, 8 minutes into the second.
It's a very convincing, to this point it may change and they may get tired, but I can't see that happening. They've got such a head of wind up now and playing the kind of footy that they play in the normal sense. They're massively good in the contest. I mean, contest possession's about the same, but they've been significantly better in the clearances. They've been on the spread, they've been running like O'Keefe ran like strong and long to get out there on his own in the wing to be received on, giving them an exit kick out of the back half, and they've been running Hawthorn down whenever they got that chance. No one's got an easy disposal. Been terrific.
Wow, what a huge psychological boost this could be. Long way to go though, but a reminder that Kurt Tippett was a late withdrawal, not playing. Maybe they're playing a bit better without him because he's been such a target, but he has kicked 33 goals. How do you take that out? Bird sends them forward again, but straight down the throat of Lake. He's more like an ocean then because he just swallowed the ball with no one around him and he chips the ball out wide to Hill. But I still think, David, the Swans, and I thought in the grand final, they're just more even. They've got 22 good players and I reckon there's a handful of Hawks to about the 17, 18, 19. Is that a bit harsh?
No, I think you're right, absolutely right at the moment. And we know him. Bruce hasn't touched the ball. I think he's still without a possession and it's halfway through the second quarter. Standing
his ground well there was Burgoyne. Got it on the second grab as a couple of Swans had a go at trying to swat it away. Probably should have in the end. And a chance now for Hawthorn. Sewell's been good. He's trying to lift them back into the game. By hand to Hill. Some hard running up towards half forward after taking the half back. And here's the man Bruce on the good lead in front of McVeigh.
Go back and take the responsibility, son, and kick it.
He does that often. He does not miss too many. The snaps from the boundary line, the set shots. He can do it all. And he has to do this from about 10 metres in from the boundary. Left half forward. 48 metres out. Luke Bruce steps and goals. What a wonderful swinging delivery. And the Hawks have their fourth. And it's back to a 3-goal margin.
Well, he won it pretty well deserved it. I think he did the work. And he is, as you suggest, Robin, a very, very complete player around the goals. Whether it's on the run, he's a good snapper that you'd probably find. And he seems to kick the ones he should kick on. When he was hesitant then, I thought he was going to run off and play on and have a fly. Went back, did take the responsibility and kicked a very, very good goal.
Yeah, I think he's better when he doesn't have to think too much about it, when he's on his instincts around goal. I just like that passage of play a lot better from Hawthorn. Lake being able to drop back and mark the footy and then set up their play with kicking, more so than handball and being rushed in their disposals.
This is where they struggle. Spanger's back in the ruck now.
Lance Franklin reported in the term for a late high bump on Malcheski. 18 points the Swans lead. Parker wrestles it clear in the middle. Hand pass to Kennedy. Off to O'Keefe. Up inside the 50. Mumford wasn't given a clear run at that by Lake, but the umpire said there was nothing illegal to it. Gibson was able to take the mark. His kick's not great on the way out. Sewell had to go the spoil against Everett and get it out of bounds.
Terrible kick, Jared. You're right. It was a terrible kick. Should have been intercepted by Sydney.
So it's 65 out from the Sydney goal. At the throw-in, Spanger's doing the ruck work. Down to Mitchell. Off now to Smith. Kick round the wing. No good. Malcheski is camped to take the mark.
We just read it better than Dunstan, didn't he? Read it earlier and better.
Malcheski up to half forward. He set Jude Bolton a task here against Birchall. He's at least able to bring it to ground. McGlynn trying to burrow his way through. He's taken high, got it off to Kieran Jack. got the free kick and the advantage up to full forward. Oh, Lake shoved Mumford. That's twice in a row. I reckon he's gotten away with blue murder. Brian Lake.
Try and mark that, Lakey. Try and mark that.
He kicks and finds Bruce between wing and half back on the western side. Hawthorn are building. A risky ball, but a good in the end thanks to the strong hands of Birchall. Worm-burning pass on the bounce to Franklin. He's 70 from goal. Beautiful kick again to Buddy, working superbly as he did in the first quarter with big Ruffy out on the lead, and the red-hot Coleman medal favourite is lining up for number 2 to take his tally to 66 for the year.
Well, you think that was a lovely piece of football, 5 kicks in a row. Lake's kick, he should have been gone down and grabbed him, tell him to stand underneath that rubbish he kicks up in the air. It's hard to kick the ball with a bit of trajectory.
So the Hawks are responding. They're just 3 goals down, possibly soon to be 2, but big Jared is prone to a little inaccuracy from time to time. It drifts away to the left-hand side. 17-point lead of the Swans, 12.5 gone second quarter.
McVeigh to kick in. Toa to himself in the back pocket, and then just go the half-distance pass for Malcheski. Watches them break up ahead. Kennedy was the best option. It guides the ball to him 50 away from the defensive goal. Malcheski on the follow-up, receives the hand pass, kick up beyond halfway, but Gibson had it well scouted. He takes the intercepting mark for the Hawks, squares it off for Sewell. Sewell has a look up near half forward, and he has seen Savage all on his own. He marks, turns and puts it lace out for Gunston on the lead.
This is the bloke, Jared, they wanted within 35 or 40 metres of goal, says he, but he is a very, very competent kick.
33 goals, 13 coming here tonight. He's a simple player, isn't he? Lead, mark, turn, and more often than not, kick the goal. Can he come up with the final piece of the puzzle? Yes, he will. Gunston goals, and the Hawks string a couple together. They peg the margin back to 11 points as we near the halfway mark of the second term. It's Sydney 7-2, Hawthorn 5-3.
I think it's a pretty simple equation. Sydney have got to stop the uncontested marks from Hawthorn, do everything in their power.
And they were doing that, weren't they?
Well, they were up until probably the last 5 minutes, where Hawthorn have kicked 3 goals and had 3 really good transitions to play with, predominantly kick mark. If they can force it to a contested situation, get the ball on the ground, that's when they're their biggest chance.
And the Swans maintain the rage. Hawks turning things around at the halfway point of the second quarter. Just 11 points in it. Mumford tries to will his way through the contest, but Sewell was good again. Gave to Hale, gave to Jure. His high kick. Malcheski, rough head. Malcheski spoils away. Straight into the lap of Mitchell. Couldn't control the foot. He might get it again, though. Trying to kick it out of the pack there was rough head. Sliding to his knees and winning a free kick over the shoulder was Lewis. Perhaps a little fortunate. He sends it out to Puopolo, who marks. He's still outside 50. At right half forward on the eastern side. He's going to sit it to the square towards Roughhead, who wrestles and pushes and shoves. Got his hands to it. Couldn't complete the mark. Hawthorn jumpers around the footy at the top of the square. Swans defenders desperate. Rampy in over the top with Richards. Will have a ball up, but deep in the Hawks attack.
Sick of seeing those free kicks paid where Blake causes it himself, sliding in.
Mumford up over the top of the pack. Knocked it out into the pocket. Bruce took possession and he was wrapped up as soon as he did. And there it stays.
There have been 4 free kicks that have been nodding down around the neck by players who have tripped or burrowed in with their heads.
Franklin, third man up, tips it to himself, muscles his way at goal and drives it home. That was an act of sheer power from Lance Franklin. 3 in a row for the Hawks. The margin is 5 points. Sydney 7-2 to Hawthorn 6-3.
Well, that was described perfectly because he had 3 or 4 hanging off him and they were front, back and side, and he was able to take control of the ball, drop it on his boot and kick it accurately out of that surround through the defenders who are all hovering between him and the goal. Remarkable. I think Steve might have been reading to it more than it was, but I think that's a remarkable goal.
Shannon Byrne on the boundary.
Well, great atmosphere down here too. It's just brought the southern end to life, the Hawks fans. But 2 weeks ago, we saw this happen again when they played Collingwood second quarter.
Puopolo sends Hawthorn forward once more. 2-on-2 contest at centre half forward. Sewell left without it. Comes to Hill off the side of the boot. Richards works his way to the front of Spanger and slides into a chest mark between fullback and centre half back at the northern end and plays on quickly to Bird. Bird's got support with Biggs running alongside him. Maintains possession himself. Goes to McGlynn, back to Biggs. He's been busy in his debut game. Kicks to Pike, who did well this time. Got rid of Gibson by hand. Lays to Shepherd. Rowan for his first goal, and he's come back. Sees it. He kicks the great goal on the run from 40. Big hug at centre half forward with Kieran Jack. Jude Bolton runs in as well in his third game back after that horrific leg injury. He gets a goal, his first of the season, and the Swans a much needed one. Some breathing space. They lead by 11.
That was a Didak and Chapman-like response, Jared, wasn't it? His teammates came. I mean, that's a fabulous part of footy that only those who are out there and understand, and they're recognising and rewarding him. He was more excited than a lot of them, but they all joined in the throng.
Leg
Loves
looked
it.
all right.
So that's tested his leg. I think they've just done a fitness test on that.
Oh, it's terrific to see. And he did it like a bloke who knew what he was doing too. No one was going to catch him, and he put it away with aplomb.
Looked like that outpouring of emotion that, I'm back and I'm confident and I can do this again.
Swans by 11. Good answering goal. Pike to the side of the pack. Kieran Jack toils away. Hand pass to McGlynn. He gives it up to Kennedy. Just about threw that out the back to McVeigh. Lewis gets a boot in there to disrupt the play, and that will force a bounce.
It's a good. There've been a few turnovers and mistakes, but it's a good quality game of footy.
Roughhead, third man up with great effect. He spikes it 30 metres forward. Bruce comes out, has a fumble. Leaves it there for McVeigh in defence. Hand pass to Malcheski. Kicks the Swans wide, too wide. Off hands, right against the boundary. It'll be thrown in.
Oh, that's interesting. Spanger, that's 3 times now. Spanger has not been able to read it as fast as
they're playing him permanently forward too now.
Well,
not going in the ruck at all.
No.
On the outer wing, thrown into play. Kennedy trying to burst his way clear. Hand pass to McGlynn, kick smothered. All tearing through the pack was Kieran Jack. Knocked it up. Off it went to McGlynn. He got it from Bird inside the 50. White worked hard. Hand pass for Everett. Back to Bird, who stays in the play and measures off the kick for Rowan. He can have a ping in a second in 2 minutes.
Just that ballistic speed running forward from the Swans is just what we spoke about before, David. Just that ability to spread hard forward, just Hawthorn, leaving Hawthorn in their wake.
They are, and this will be a blueprint for everybody else. This was the thinking. Here's a game that's showing it.
Gary Rowan will have the adrenaline pumping. A set shot from 40 out. He's doubled up. And he celebrates the second almost as enthusiastically as the first.
His mates haven't shown quite the same exuberance. They're saving their energy.
He served that one out to the crowd. The first one he was looking for the attention of his teammates, and the second one he simply turned to the crowd and gave it the big fist pump. These games between these two teams have been noted for wild momentum swings, and the Swans have just grabbed a piece of it back. 9-2-56, 17-point leaders on the Hawks, 6-3-39.
Now, second last round last year was the one we were talking about. That had exactly that format, didn't it?
And the grand final did.
Yeah, that's true.
Wild swings.
It's exciting stuff. It is a good game of football.
Oh, it's just terrific.
2 of the top 4 teams in the competition by a mile. Some Richmond supporters might argue about that, given they knocked off the Hawks, but I think they're pretty comprehensively the best sides. The red and whites against the golden browns. Goes towards the boundary line with Gary Rowan again.
Well, I suppose he's in that, but to be truthful, 24, whatever it is for Hawthorn. Stratton was in front by a mile when they started the race. He ran third.
In it comes Pike and Hale. Hale, good use of the body. A couple of Swans go hard at it. Parker, I should say. McVeigh dished off to Everett to Grundy, a long way up from fullback. Flying out there was Mitchell, and Rowan again, in fact it was. Now Mitchell of Hawthorn gives to Hill. He's at centre half back inside defensive 50. Hill's kick. He was looking for Roughhead. It didn't have the carry. And Bird chips in and takes it and flares it into the middle to Biggs. Handball over the top to Malcheski's. He got another player running past. He wants his left. Forced onto the right. This could work out okay. Pike backing back into the pack. White charges out. Can he shrug a tackle? He can't. He can give to McVeigh, who sprays a shot. Standing start from 30. Out of bounds on the full. It's the Swans' chance at the moment to make hay. And they missed that opportunity, lead by 17.
Probably had one of the easiest setups in the finish. Yeah. They mucked that one up.
He had a breath more space than he would have realised
absolutely.
too. Gibson played on out of the back pocket, went long, and Richards up into the pack to take a neat intercepting mark.
And this is against Spanger too, and it's not looking good for the young fella. He's really struggled.
They've got to trap the Swans at half forward. Again, they'll take their chances to the teeth of goal. No mark. Gibson hand pass not great. Burgoyne all straight for the boundary. How the umpires see it generously. It'll be a throw in. As Lakers a bit slow to rise from all the physical contacts.
And we wait to Gary Rowan's offer again in the hands of the trainer. Not right, this right leg. It's the lower calf now at the moment giving him problem. Just doing a fitness test.
Right forward pocket for the Swans. Mumford guides it down underneath. Bird coming through. Overruns the footy. Bruce down to the back pocket with a hand pass away to Puopolo. High ball near the defensive 50. Franklin flew, no mark. Burgoyne's brought down. The Swans are swarming at the Hawks here. McGlynn takes possession, desperate to feed it off, couldn't quite. Kick in the pack there by Lewis. Ball comes chaotically to half forward for Sydney. McGlynn gets hold of it again. He's in a tackle. Cunningham got it to him. Somehow or another it's a free kick to McGlynn in all of that.
He's got a high one. I thought he had a high one a moment ago. Prior to that myself. He just kicked it to the forward line. Huge leap there by a Swan. It might have been Jesse White or Mumford in fact. Hawthorn desperate in the last line of defence. Savage will clear towards the boundary line. McVeigh gets there, traps it cleverly, but good tackle by Whitecross, sees him over on the 50-metre arc.
They're just quicker everywhere. They're quicker in reading the flight and the pathway of the ball, and they're quicker to get there all over the ground. It's standing out like the proverbial.
4 goals apiece this second quarter, 23 minutes gone in the second quarter. It's the Swans by 17. Richards positions himself well and then dropped the mark, although he's still in an awkward position. He was up against Franklin and Gunston and he sees it out of bounds and interchange gate.
Wonderful player, Richards.
Centre wing. Heading back into play. Pike makes good position. Didn't do much with the tap though. Just straight down underneath. Malcheski offloaded. Bruce shoveled it out to Smith. Wobbles the ball to half forward. It's over the top of Roughhead, but he got clipped high by Grundy. It's too far out you'd fancy. He is. So he'll go the short pass and they open that up well, Hawthorn. Whitecross, who's probably also on the extremes of his range right at the 50.
Yeah, that's interesting because they had more Swans getting back quicker and he was smart enough, Whitecross, to run back to the goal, spin turn and provide a target coming at the kicker, and there wasn't a Sydney player watching, let alone defending it. That's most unusual.
Usually the Sydney are the kings of that.
Yeah, they are, absolutely.
So the test of the set shot. Brendan Whitecross, 51 metres out. He hits it hard and high, but it drifts out to the right. And with a little bit of assistance goes through for a behind. It's the Swans by 16 at the 25-minute mark.
McVeigh with the kick-in duties. As he looks to the southern end, kicks to himself and runs into the right back pocket. Clears defensive 50. Lake and White. Lake does brilliantly. I thought White had worked his way into the best position, but Lake knew best and he marks 70 from goal. Pumps it long in the Franklin direction. Standing over the top was Hale though for Hawthorn. Over the shorter Parker. And in that contest of 3-on-3, David Hale took a ripper.
I still think Lake's kick, it probably is the right kick high to the front of the square, but gosh, he gives them some height, doesn't he? Every Tom, Dick and Harry that's even at the other end in the back pocket can get down to mark that. It stays in the air so long.
Going inside 50, not as bad. Coming out of defensive 50 is when you don't want hang time on the ball.
He's had about 4 tonight that have murdered his teammates.
Hale from 20 out, virtually directly in front to make it a 10-point ball game, which he does. Hale gets his first. Hawthorn their 5th of the quarter. 56 plays 46.
Well, it's interesting they've had Roughhead actually go into centre bounces as the ruck rover, while Spanger's been there going for the ruck, which is a interesting concept. I know they love Ruffy and he does well around his feet, etc. But you think you're going to get him in there, you probably try and get under pressure. He's not a bad ruckman, Roughhead. He actually gets his hand on the ball and delivers it where he should, where Spanger's been struggling to even get up to the height of the two taller Sydney ruckman.
Yeah, Hale's just come off after that goal. Spanger into the centre bounce. Hawthorn have wrestled back the clearances this quarter. It's 18 all for the game. We'll see how the last couple of minutes of this quarter go with Spanger in the ruck.
Stephen Gillam and David Parkin on Grandstand AFL. It's the Swans by 10 points. Deep into the second term. At the bounce, Mumford reaches in, wins the tap, down to O'Keefe, feeds it off to Kieran Jack, and on to Kennedy, out wider still. The runner is McVeigh. He gathers, has a bounce, looks to full forward, sets it up in the Jude Bolton direction. Couldn't quite get there to take the mark. Birchall works underfoot for the Hawks in defence. He feeds it off to Mitchell and Stratton and Puopolo, and now Sewell, who's got to go in a hurry. Over the top to Spanger. Now Sewell was down after he got rid of it, so downfield. Spanger uses that moment to measure his kick-off to Gunston. Up at the interchange gates. He'll go 30 metres for the pass for Bruce. Good ball control here from the Hawks. Bruce takes off. He's kicked for Roughhead. Lovely overhead mark. And superb movement from defence to attack. Jared Roughhead just been put on his correct angle. It's only marginal. He'll stroll his way up to the 50 and see if he can add the 66th goal for this season. No, he's kicked that poorly off the outside of the left boot, and it wobbles through from behind. Swans still by 9 points.
Didn't learn from his last shot. It's similar part of the left half forward flank, similar distance, about 35 out. Hung it out to the left on both occasions. 1 goal, 2, but Hawthorn back within 9 points, enjoying a nice little spell in this fluctuating game. Spills out of bounds at left half back.
The one who's been well covered, and I'm just trying to work out who's doing the run with, there is one is Smith. Smith's had 8 or 9.
Benny McGlynn, mate.
Benny McGlynn, is it? Well, he's doing a terrific job if he's been the tag.
Spanger forced to do the ruck work, although Lewis was third man in against Mumford. Whitecross quickly inside attacking 50, tumbles it. Buddy held his ground. The big fend on Biggs was legal, said the umpire. The kick not so good from Franklin once he cleared some space. Mitchell taken in the tackle, got a handball away to Bolton. He wanted to be slick, but he missed his target flying by there, and Kieran Jack coming up to Whitecross, cleverly out to Puopolo, on to Lewis, forced onto the right boot. High kick back towards the square. Roughhead there comes in. A couple clever tap back into the path of his teammates. But the Swans get there first through Mumford, now to Grundy. He's claimed in a strong tackle. Hill tackles Malchesky. Back to Richards, back to the boundary line to Roughhead. Back inboard it comes. Kieran Jack tries to clear the 40 for Sydney. Hill, can he weave some magic? A push in the back, a hold decision will go to the Swans, and will go to Mumford, who was brilliant in those exchanges trying to save his team.
Roughhead was incensed in all of that. It was a crazy free kick to give away. Mumford's kick out to halfbacks, not marked by Tom Mitchell, and it's off hands out of bounds.
Little Bradley Hill, Copland and all that is a bit worse for wear.
Doctors are pretty eager to take him from the fields. Quite feeling the same way at the moment. Lewis third man up, but all he did was knock it to Kennedy. The Swans up to half forward, wide in front. He gets away from Lake on this occasion. Hand passed out in front of himself. He didn't get it though. Hodge gets in the way. Hand pass to Lake. White goes and wraps him up again. It's a good tackle, and he has claims, and he will get holding the ball, because Lake did nothing to get rid of it.
Yeah, he headed for a free kick. Looked like he'd been hit and pretended he'd been hit, and then just collapsed and did nothing with the ball. So good decision, umpire.
So Lake's played well, but Jesse White's had a couple of good wins against him. The first goal of the game, a scrap in the goal square. He outpointed him twice on that occasion.
Pretty critical goal, this one. If he can put this one away on half time, it'll be a huge lift for the team.
And now after the siren. So the Swans will lead at the main change. How far? It's in the hands of Jesse White. From 55 out, he launches it out across the face and will not score. So it's the Swans by 9 points at the main break. Sydney 9-2-56 to Hawthorn 7-5-47. So the quarter time lead was halved by the Hawks in that term. The goal kickers, 2 each for Rowan and White, with singles to Tom Mitchell, Kieran Jack, McGlynn, Bolton and Parker. For the Hawks, they're all singles. Roughhead, Lewis, Birchall, Gunston, Hale, Bruce and Franklin. And Lance Franklin has been reported for rough conduct for a late bump on Nick Malcheski, the shoulder driving into the head, and that will attract attention from the match review panel. Half-time on Grandstand AFL here on ABC Local Radio, News Radio and Grandstand Digital. It's the Swans by 9 points. Stephen Gillum and David Parker.
Well, I might be a bit harsh, Stephen, but some of the real playmakers for Hawthorn essential in their makeup. I know Lewis is coming back in after injury, in my opinion, hasn't influenced the game greatly. Hodge has been in about 4 different spots, front, back and middle, and has done a little but not significant in my opinion. Mitchell has been well held, I think, in his role. Started to do a little more in the second quarter and was probably a key in some of their forward thrust. And Smith was the one we mentioned before, who I think is an absolute key. If their weakness is speed over the ground, and particularly on the outside, and particularly giving some spread when Hawthorn are in possession, he's been unable to deliver against the McGlynn tag. So Hawthorn are going to have to, if they're allowed to get some more out of there. But the work across the board, Stephen, of Sydney has just been a classical Sydney performance.
Yeah, their ability to block the exits for Hawthorn coming out of defence, their ability to get the ball on the ground and hunt after it has just been first class in this first half, and if they can maintain that, it goes a long way to winning this game. I think the momentum changes, and whoever can make the most of those momentum changes throughout this game, which has been significant, will also, if they can capitalise and kick goals when they do have the momentum each side, will help win the game. I think Hawthorn looked a lot better when they could compose the ball, take a mark in their back 50 and set up with uncontested marks. I think there was 3 or 4 passages of play in a row there in the middle of that quarter where they were able to do that, with Lake taking the mark, dropping back, and then Birchall getting involved through the middle. And, Ruffy up forward, finishing off a couple of times. He probably would have liked to kick goals where he missed to the left-hand side. But, look, the momentum changes are coming for this second half, and whoever can make the most of that and finish off with the most energy will win the game.
I think a big question for them to ask and answer is the use of the sub, and you would have thought that maybe Jed Anderson is going to be a crucial player in the sense of how this game is playing, the predictability of his role within the team. I think they've got to unleash him. It might be a bit of a problem. Might have to take a spanger off and do more ruck work between Roughhead and Hale, and allow him to do the run, because the run department is the key to this game, I think. And at the moment, Hawthorn are coming second far too often. And I said that in the read of the play too. I got really disappointed that 4 or 5 times with 4 or 5 different players, the kick has been a Hawthorn kick, maybe not going exactly where it's supposed to go, but the player ahead, the Hawthorn player ahead, not being able to read it as quickly as his Sydney opponent, and for them to cut off and take balls that were actually educated kicks forward, which were read far better by the defence of Sydney than they were by the attacking blokes at Hawthorn.
Yeah, just the sharpness and the edge of Sydney.
Yeah, that's it.
I think, bouncing back from a disappointing week last week, they would have had a big week on the track. They would have, as Nick Smith alluded to earlier, were really filthy on themselves for the processes and the way they went about it, and that's what they wanted to get out of this game. And so far, the first half, they'd be really happy.
Well, and Savage is one that needs to stand up and do it, but he's had 2 possessions for the game up until half-time. He's one of those roles with Hill. Hill's probably had a little more. Yeah, he's had 11 and been a half-reasonable player, but certainly Savage couldn't hold his place if the Anderson was able to come on and do it. I think Rowan's a worry in that he's gone off. Was that 3rd time? I think he's gone off 3rd time, been looked at by the doctor. But even the Bolton hasn't had much, but he's doing a terrific job on Mitchell. Cunningham looks he can play okay, but the one that they'd be absolutely delighted with is Shane Biggs. And we were wrapping him up at quarter time, and he's continued to play. He's had 11 possession, it would be a 22 possession game, basically in his first. He has not looked out of place at all. They've been great, Sydney, that they can put him in, and they played at a level and the manner which they're expected to play. I think that's fantastic. So we've got good game to watch, and the momentum changes have been savage, as they always have for some reason, which I don't understand between these two times. They're not out of it, Hawthorn, but certainly the standard has been really well set by the method that the Sydney players have applied to Hawthorn.
Absolutely.
And as for the Franklin report on Malcheski, the two categories here will be whether it was negligent or reckless, and whether the impact was low or medium. Now, Malcheski left the field and had his jaw checked. If you take a combination of the two, say you take reckless and low, that's 225 points. So with a guilty plea, he'd missed the first final. If you take negligent with medium, that's going to be 225 points. His only way out would be negligent and low, which would be 125 points, and with a guilty plea he would play next week. But he's got no carryover points and no loadings, but he can't get any further discount other than the guilty plea.
No carryovers?
No, they've all expired.
Oh,
he has
okay.
a long record, but none of it is relevant at the moment.
Okay.
So I think as we sit here now, 60-40, Franklin won't play the qualifying final.
Yes, I think I'd agree with you.
Okay, so that's where it sits at halftime at the Olympic Stadium. The Sydney Swans by 9 points over the Hawks. We'll have more from Stephen Gillam and David Parkin and scores of all sorts after the latest from the ABC newsroom. Half-time on Grandstand AFL at the Olympic Stadium. It is Sydney 9-2-56, leading Hawthorn 7-5-47. The only two multiple goal kickers on the ground, Gary Rowan and Jesse White with two apiece. The stats to half-time, the overall team stats, Hawthorn leading possession-wise 188 to 171. They've had 109 kicks, 79 hand passes. The Swans have had 93 kicks, 78 hand passes. The marks 54 Hawthorn, 37 Sydney. The inside 50s, the Swans weigh 31 to 25. The contested possession, Hawthorn has nudged ahead 72 to 69. The clearances, Hawthorn's weigh 21 to 18. The tackles, Sydney 38 to 28. And the free kicks, the Swans 14 to the Hawks 10. Individually, Kennedy and Burgoyne are the leaders in the game. They have 16 each. Kennedy's had 3 kicks and 13 hand passes. McVeigh's had 12 disposals, Bird 11, Biggs 11, McGlynn 11, Jack 11, and then 4 players at 10, O'Keefe, Everett, White and Malcheski, so sharing the load there. For Hawthorn, Burgoyne with 16, Sewell with 15, Puopolo 14, Birchall and Roughhead 13 each. Those that have been quiet, Savage has only had 2, Bruce 4, Duray 4, and Hodges had 7 and Sam Mitchell 8. And on the other side of the sheet, Jude Bolton's only had a couple on his return. And Rowan's had 3, but 2 of those have been goals. So he's made a little bit of that. The NRL scores, the early stages of the second half tonight. The Broncos 14 leading the Knights 12. The Knights captain Kurt Gidley has been stretchered off with a foot injury, while the Tigers and South Sydney are now locked together at 18 each. So 2 lopsided scores are now particularly close, and we'll have final scores for you as they become available. David Parkin, Stephen Gillam, you've had a bit of a look through the stats and a think about what's to come. We pondered what was at stake at the start. It now seems to me that there's a hell of a lot at stake for Sydney. If they can win with the team that they've put out there, the confidence that they will then bring to Melbourne against either Hawthorn or Geelong, they'll feel like they're back. They'll feel like they're back on the trademarks that they set for themselves.
Yeah, I think Sydney, with the guys they've brought in, with the side they've put out against the number 1 team in the AFL currently, are playing to their capacity. I just think the upside for Hawthorn in this second half is so much greater than Sydney. I think Sydney's played up to their potential, whereas Hawthorn, I don't think have for this first half anyway. And credit to Sydney and the guys they've brought in, like Harry Cunningham, Brandon Jack, Biggs, Bird. Benny McGlynn's done a really good job on Isaac Smith, shutting him out of the game totally. So they've all played their role for the side. I think what Clarko will be saying to the Hawthorn team at halftime is, basically those guys who we mentioned, Jared, who haven't had an influence, and David on the game, really need to lift for their teammates and for their team to take this second half into next week and finish off strongly and earn that number 1 spot.
Yeah, in the middle of that, who had less than 10 possessions for the night. Franklin, after a brilliant start, has gone back to negligible amounts. Mitchell is about half of what he would normally be. He's had 9 to be round 18 or 20 by this stage. Smith, we talked about, still only had 8 by half time. I'm right in saying that, about 8 at half time. Hodge 7 at half time. So some of their guns might have gone out with the attitude that I suggested, that you're trying to play for survival, and they're getting done because of it. There's no doubt about it, that the same intent is not there. Hale's been real. Spanger's just not been up to it, and they've known that for a long time. Stratton struggled down part, and Gunston hasn't had that many opportunities, but he's a lead mark kick goal man. That's about what he does. But they'll be disappointed, I think, in Savage particularly. I would have thought they will be compelled either immediately or soon after into the third quarter. I know you wouldn't want to play one rotation short for too long, but if Jed Anderson doesn't come on now, he can't even claim a credential to be picked again next week. He needs to come on and make a difference, because he brings the asset which they don't have much of. Well, they don't have enough of. So you would think that change should be made sooner rather than later. And you're quite right, because whatever might happen after this, the mojo for Sydney is back. The 10 players that we're talking about, the premiership players who aren't in the team tonight, and everyone's been talking about, and poor old Sydney, and no one talks about Sydney in the same breath as they do at Geelong. Doesn't matter, we've got another 8 of that size and shape who can come in. That's exactly what's happened. The boys that have come in, including the new ones, Cunningham and Biggs, have been not just okay, they've been terrific in the heat. Now, whether they can sustain it's another thing. So the pluses are all with individually and collectively are all with Sydney. And Hawthorn have some work to do to not leave here tonight. The 4 points mightn't be all that important. In fact, they'll finish on top. But they'll have their mojo, if you like, the thing we talked about before the game, dinted savagely. If they come up against Sydney, they'll know they'll get them next time, whoever they put out in the ground. And Hawthorn can't get all that much better. Jurea struggles a bit, and Guia is a better, I think, proposition than he at this stage. But there are not that many changes outside this team, other than Bailey, who I think is a significant loss because they've dominated the hit-outs and clearances with it. But they can't get all that much better personnel-wise. And there's certainly 3 or 4 who will come back into the Sydney side and give them the depth they'll need to make their way through September.
Yeah, the other real strength I see going forward in the game, if Spanger does get subbed out, is the big men for Sydney in terms of Mumford and Pike getting on top and going forward and kicking goals and an avenue to win this game.
I'd agree with that, and they've been terrific on the back of a very difficult 3 or 4 weeks, a couple of smashings, a couple of players who are the heart and soul goods type people that they're talking about in a very negative sense about their ability to get back and play. So it hasn't been an easy month for the Sydney Football Club, but this would be the injection that they need in confidence, and let's hope they can continue to play in the second half. Their supporters have come out in reasonable numbers tonight, get the win that they desperately want, and go into September with a reasonable amount, a really strong morale and confidence to do the job.
So players back out onto the field and heading for their positions. The Swans by 9 points. They led by 18 at half-time, and we had a term that delivered 5 goals to 4 Hawthorn's way to peg it back. So there is plenty of intrigue. There were those who were prepared to deride this as a practice match when Tippett came out, and Bailey as well, but there is intrigue and plenty at stake now as we hit the second half of Friday night footy.
And Smith is forward, starting forward. Hodge is starting back.
On Grandstand AFL, you're with Rob Cross.
So Hale and Mumford to begin the second half at the Olympic Stadium. Swans to the northern end. Mumford won the tap. Basketball style, flipped it but straight to the hands of Puopolo. Comes to O'Keefe though. Of the Swans. Bird another possession on the left boot to Pike. Pushed away, held by Gibson. The smaller man had given away front position. Gibson can't believe it, pleading his case. But the ball will be in the safe hands generally this year of Mike Pike. He's had 1 shot on goal tonight already. It was a toughie from the pocket and he missed. But he's banged through 25 for the year.
Rob, his positioning, he's learnt the game so well. That's the nuances you learn as a kid kicking the ball on the street. He knows where the ball drop's going to be.
48 out. Pike pokes. Pike goals within 40 seconds of the opening bounce of the second half. The Swans, what a dream start. 10-2-62, out to a 15-point lead.
And it exposes, Stephen, the weakness that Hawthorn have always had. The big, strong mongrel down there that who can body and use that Gibson's a terrific defender, but you can't expect him in that position to win that contest or even defend it, and expose them again. Jesse White's been pretty good without being outstanding down there, and even without Tippett. Tippett comes in, as he will. That provides another difficulty for a defence that Hawthorn doesn't have.
Absolutely.
So the Swans by 15 points. Hale and Mumford square up in the middle. Kennedy and Sam Mitchell side by side, leaning into each other as the bounce goes down. Lovely tap from Mumford off to O'Keefe. Hand pass to Kieran Jack. Sydney back to centre half forward. No mark for Brandon Jack. Bolton with a hand pass to Tom Mitchell. It spills away and Puopolo trying to get through. He was brought down by O'Keefe, but he was taken high. Puopolo with the free kick. Hand pass to Stratton. Long ball to half forward. That won't come off, and Richards has it, will round it up.
Love Puopolo's game. He's dragged them back, one of a few players to drag the Hawks back into it in the second quarter. High possession winner, tough, and he waits again at the bottom of this pack. Hodge rides Mitchell into the ground, play on the call, comes to Kennedy, comes to Mumford, trying to farm a handball out. Puopolo, another disposal, no. He just tried to fumble off his fingers and he's crunched into the Olympic Stadium turf.
That's ridiculous.
He's going to give away a free kick, which is ridiculous. Kennedy, they've done it a few times tonight. The umpires have decided that the players have had long enough to get rid of it. White goes up, slapped away by Burgoyne after Lake couldn't beat the big Swans monster close to goal. Chance here for Mitchell, farms it out, kick smothered by O'Keefe. Hodge, ever calm, loops one over the top to Birchall, who's just as calm. The two left footers combined by hand, and now off to another left footer, and Mitchell, who's left this time, he's left and right. He'd never know with that man. Off to Bruce, towards the boundary line. He traps it, controls it cleverly, then taken down in a crunching tackle. Will this be holding the ball, umpire? No, play on the call. The Swans emerge with it. McVeigh got a poor handball there from his teammate and Grundy, and it goes out of bounds.
Swans by 15. Thrown in on the outer wing. Mumford cleanly down to O'Keefe. Kick was smothered by Sewell, who flung himself at the boot. Savage has a go, fails. Kieran Jack is stripped of the ball. Kennedy toes it off the ground, but it's repelled by Hodge. No inch given here. O'Keefe for the hand pass to Kieran Jack. Hammered it forward for Jude Bolton into the pocket for White. That was a test of strength that the Swans prevailed in. And Jesse White is buried away in the right forward pocket for the resulting shot at goal.
Gee, it was a good lead and a good take. I didn't think the kick was possibly on it. It would be too strong for his hands, but he grabbed it beautifully and now has an opportunity to open this game right up.
He's kicked two, both to this end in the opening term. It's the toughest of shots. Not much daylight between the posts. He bends it near side. And it is a behind. The Swans by 16.
A big banana, but not done with the Stevie J right angle to the boundary line.
No, not the J curve.
No, not the J.
Birchall kicks to himself, then has a bounce and then chips to Savage.
Must have gone 8 metres.
Goes back to Birchall. Kicks up to the wing on the eastern side. Roughhead has a couple to beat. Everett was over the top after Richards did the initial pushing and shoving with the Hawk big man. It smashed out of bounds.
I think Everett's fitting in a bit better. I didn't think Everett was ever going to be a consistent performer, but he's floating across halfback, doing it pretty well.
Yeah, had a good season, latter half of the season in particular. Maybe that confidence thing, David. They've given him a few games and he's grown into a role. 16-point lead to Sydney. 5 minutes gone, third quarter. Only goal of the quarter so far to the Swans. They're trying to work it forward again. Might have been intercepted though. Hawthorn could go inside attacking 50. Richards knocks away there from Franklin. Ball doesn't sit that kindly for Lewis, but he held his ground beautifully in the tackle. Came to Savage, came to Burgoyne. Here's danger. Burgoyne pokes over the top to Smith, who'd run on and takes the mark inside 50. 45 out, wants to give off, but can go back on a 45-degree angle.
So he's one of the few players out of that contest. Smith anticipated and went. No one could go with him. He's one of the few players that actually can provide the run, spread, receive, and I think the capacity to go back and kick this.
Smith to become the 8th individual goal scorer for Hawthorn. The left footer from 48 hooks the kick. It started to bend back a little at the end, but not enough. One behind to Hawthorn. They go to 7-6-48. They're 15 points in arrears. Swans 10-3-63.
Just hasn't been able to get into it because the Swans have won those contests more often than not tonight.
So he gets out and then he's caught out because he's going the wrong way.
Melcheski marked the kick in. He feigned to go right, doubled back left and kicks for Biggs at defensive 50. He's got Parker working for him over the top. He'll take the mark. This is out at left half back. So Parker's got options to head back across the face of goal through Rampy. And he'll go off on a gallivanting run, granted a lot of space, and then keep it on the broadcast wing with a long kick in the white direction. Mumford waited back. He took it at the back of the pack. Hand pass to O'Keefe. Kicks around the boundary up to half forward. A bouncing ball that slews away from Lake and Pike and goes out of play.
A bad result. I thought they could have maybe gone inboard there. Left it to go wide to O'Keefe, but it's still inside there, attacking 50. Mumford up in front, won the tap. Bird's been terrific all night. McVeigh, but from behind, clever by Bruce. Chopped down though by Parker. Still about 48 from the Swans' goal. O'Keefe piles in with Parker, and the ball is held up at left half forward.
Brewster's just not getting it right, is he? Doesn't win the ball enough. When he does, he's given it up both hand and foot to people in worse positions. He needs to straighten himself out.
Sydney 63, Hawks 48, 7 minutes gone, third quarter. Bird just got rid of it. The tackle from Gunston was pretty good. Hill has a bit of an air swing, comes to Gunston, somehow gets the boot to ball, up to Roughhead, to Pawopolo, sidestepping to Spanger. His hurried kick was smothered. McGlynn couldn't control the football. Richards charging through, off his hands to Parker, back to Richards. Three-man tackle. Buddy did the most damage, but somehow the ball comes out to Jack. High kick. Out comes Mumford. Didn't get a hand on the footy. Looped over the top by Smith to Birchall, back to Smith in the last line of defence.
He's roaring across the face of goal and kicking haphazardly the outer side. It lands in the field of play, rolls over, and the umpire says throw it in. There was only a breath in that as to whether it was going to be out on the full or deliberate. He got away with both.
Yeah, McGlynn shouldn't be a smarty there. It might come back to bite him by letting him know.
40 out from the Sydney goal. Spanger does the ruck work, and he did it effectively. Off the ground goes Whitecross out of the pack. Up near Franklin and Richards. Grundy came hammering through the other way, but Franklin stopped him cold. Hill to Roughhead to Sewell. He's in heavy traffic. Hand passes wide of it for Whitecross, trying to get through. Throws it onto the boot, up and down the mine shaft almost. Grundy for the Swans through O'Keefe and McVeigh and up inside the 50. Just a little wide of Mumford. Ball rolling out toward the boundary and it won't sit. There's the ruckman headed back for it. It'll be thrown in, 30 out from the Sydney goal.
How's the tackle of Franklin? Grundy's a big bloke. He had a full head of steam up.
It's a good tackle.
Franklin just wrapped him up. Forward pocket for the Swans. They lead by 15. 9 minutes gone. Third quarter. Spanger reaches around, wins the tap, fights for it at ground level. Comes to Gunston, who's been sent back as well. Everett was crunched in the air. Rampy trying to soccer it through the pack. Hawthorn half back line working desperately, trying to clear it. The umpire's sweating on this one too. Will it come out? It hasn't come out yet. The umpire's still watching. Another holding the ball decision. Going the Swans' way. Going to McGlynn.
You are kidding.
Extraordinary. He's got 4 or 5 of these tonight. Bit of a directive. McGlynn at right half forward, 60 metres out. Who's the high flyer? No one is going to be out of bounds on the full. McVeigh almost made it good. Off hands, play on the call. Mitchell did well to take the crumb and kick on the left boot and straight into the smother, which was superb from Bolton at right half forward.
It's the story of the night for me. Mitchell, usually their best bullies are coming out of the back half, just forced onto his left and smothered out of bounds. Sydney applying huge pressure here.
50 from the Swans goal. They've had it trapped here for a little while. Bird spins his way through the pack off to Kieran Jack. Not a great hand pass. McGlynn keeps it in dispute at least. Hill is busy around it for the Hawks. Whitecross had a hand pass which went through 2 or 3 sets of hands but didn't amount to anything. And it'll be balled up again.
There's so much better in the clinches. In every element of it, Sydney are thrashing inside Hawthorn.
Lovely tap. Pike down to Kieran Jack, off to O'Keefe. He was in a tackle by the time he hand passed it wide for Bird and he didn't find him. Birchall gets it out of play.
They more often than not get it first. If Hawthorn do, they're able to trap it and hold it in. If they get a clearance, it's far more effective than Hawthorn's, which is under more pressure. They're doing it brilliantly at the moment.
Swans by 15, thrown in, 50 away from their goal front. Pike would give him the tap again. Bruce gets caught coming through the pack. Ball spills out to the side momentarily. O'Keefe gets hold of it. Hand pass to Melcheski. Kick to full forward. A couple of big Swans there. White with a big fly. Couldn't quite bring it down. Still to be one underfoot. It goes off Cunningham's boot and it didn't fall the way of Bird. Sewell to Whitecross to Hill. The Hawks are on the break.
Kicks in the Roughhead direction up towards centre half forward. Rampy, that spoiling technique, wins again. Came down to Richards. Handball over the top towards the wing. Came from O'Keefe. They can go forward through Jack, inside attacking 50. Mumford worked his way to the front, second grab. Beat two of them, Lake and Spanger, 40 out, 45-degree angle. The big man power coming to the fore from Sydney.
Well, that was the opposite at the other end, wasn't it? It was 2 versus 1 at the other end, and the 2 Sydney, 1 out against, I think, Roughhead. And 2 of them took it away. It came in, and the 2 versus 1, Mumford stood in the middle and just grabbed it and shook them off and threw them all over the place.
I'd love to say Mummy could wrap it up, but there's still a long way to go in this game. 7-6-48 the Hawks. Swans 10-3-63. Oh, he's kicked it well. The cheers tell you that. The Swans have 2 for the quarter. They lead by 21. 12 minutes gone, third term.
They just look far more dangerous going forward with the footy. They've had it in their half pretty much this whole quarter. Hawthorn just can't get out, and when the ball goes up in the air, more often than not, they're either grabbing it or creating better crumbing opportunities for their small forwards.
Yeah, they're so much better, what I call in the contest situation. All the elements of that have gone in favour. They're able to get it out in the finish. They're able to force it out with some sort of clarity and effectiveness. Hawthorn is shoveling it and being caught and just pleased to get it away, but not being able to do something effective with it,
And it's deafening down here, guys. They were looking for about 40,000. I reckon we've nudged over that in the crowd here.
Swans by 21, and with a centre break again. Bolton up inside the 50. It got past Rowan, who was dragged down. Ball is loose near full forward. Jesse White almost gets hold of it. He burrows it goalward. Off the boot, it's smothered by Gibson, gathered on the boundary by Tom Mitchell. He kicks to a central location, 25 out. No mark. Jude Bolton on the turn. He swings it to the top of the square. They jump from all angles. No mark. Stratton in defence. Feeds it out the back to Birchall and on to Hodge, and he kicks beyond the defensive 50 where Savage is spoiled by Bird. And the ball is out of play again, trapped forward for the Swans, where most of this term has been played.
Sydney are playing the finals a week earlier, I reckon.
Yeah, just about.
Great chase by Gary Rowan there.
Wasn't it?
Come up limping again, but he just put enough heat to make the kick go towards the boundary line, force the stoppage and keep it on the half-forward line for Sydney, where it is now, where O'Keefe's laying a strong tackle. We'll get that ball out, folks.
Come on up. That's got to be holding the ball again. It looked like 7 others that you've paid.
Inside 50s are 11-2 in 13 minutes of this term the Swans' way.
Probably need another goal or 2 just to make the most of that advantage. Hawthorn's still well within range. Spang over the top, trying to sock it ahead Hill. And it ends up with Everett. No, there's going to be come back and a free kick to Spanger. Defensive side of the centre to Mitchell. The right-footed Mitchell this time over the top of Puopolo. Go back to the left, Sam. Brandon Jack to Malchesi to McVeigh, can feed a handball inboard. Strong hands from Parker. Watch out, maybe that wasn't the best option. So O'Keefe ran straight to the Birchall. Comes back to Bolton. They stood strong in the tackle as they have all night. Here comes Jesse. Works his way to the front. Gibson, the big spoil, straight into the arms of Sewell, who's been cool. Back to Lake to Hodge. And Hodge has it in the left back pocket. Not sure which way to go. Lake quickly onto the left boot, straight down the throat of a Swan. Bird, who's had a terrific night, makes a howler. Oh, terrible mistake. Could have come straight back in. Here's a chance for Hawthorn, but all that Hale had to go to was the boundary line. And will he be penalised? He will not. There'll be a boundary throw in the eastern wing.
Kick. No one for 400 miles and must have landed on the boundary line and dribbled out. That is an outstanding kick. I don't think it was meant, but it was an outstanding kick.
Sydney by 21 points. Thrown in on the wing. Hale, credit him with the tap. Burgoyne off the ground, didn't go very far though. Brewster's having a devil of a time against Malcheski. Malcheski brings him down. And the umpire in to ball it up again. Middle stages of this, the third term. Up it goes. The ruckman didn't get there this time. Hale, though, grabs out of the pack, kicks, and Franklin on the sprawl takes the mark. 45 out from goal. It was haphazard in its entry, but it has been effective. And Franklin's the villain of the piece. He'll go back and have his shot at goal.
Well, sheer fluke. He did read it very quickly off the ball and got on his mark and went, so he earned the right in the finish, but it wasn't anything deliberate about the forward entry.
It's the right side for him.
Kicked a goal in the second term. This is a set shot. He's taken his full allotment of time. Franklin on the approach from 48 metres out. He hits it beautifully. So good from long range. And that was urgently needed. The Hawks peg it back to 15 points. 8-6. They've played catch up all night. The Swans 11-3.
I don't think I'd be worried too much, seeing that was what you call a lucky goal. Not lucky the final kick was done in, you called it, that's his side, Stephen, isn't it? That's where he likes to, better than anybody else that we'd like to kick it from. But there wasn't much science in the method they got it out of the back half and finally in with a blind kick that happened to go down Buddy's throat. They are struggling.
Winning the clearances, though, they're just not effective, as we mentioned. They're getting their hands on the footy, but it's just not going anywhere, and it's coming back twice as quick.
So Roughhead goes to 58 goals in the Coleman Middle race. 7 behind Roughhead, who's only got 1 for the night. He's on 65. Out towards right half forward. Cunningham was good early in the game, but has petered right out, slips over. But fortunately for the Swans, it goes out of bounds. Hill not able to control it at right half forward. 60 out from the Swans' goal to the northern end. They're 69. The Hawks are 54. 17 minutes gone. It's been just a 2-goal to 1 quarter. It's been dominated by the Swans, but their reward just the 2. As again, the pack forms at half forward. The umpires have been red hot, as we've said all night. What will happen this time? Decided to do a bit of work themselves, and there'll be a ball up. As Roughhead helps his teammate Sewell up. Sewell's had a good night.
Jed Anderson warming up for the Hawks.
Up goes Mumford in the ruck contest. Barging through was Parker. Came to Jack. He was knocked out of the way. Hill again towards the boundary line. So we'll have another throw in. 55 metres around at right half forward. Swans lead by 15.
I think it's about 20 minutes late, says the coach from the box.
Well, they've written down the substitute change. They took the red vest and they've just given it back to the interchange guard. So they're just definitely going to make their change soon.
There's nothing from that throw in. It's back out of play.
It's hard to rotate at the moment with all the play and stoppages on the outer side.
Spanger's just hiding under somebody's arm over the side so he can't be caught.
He might stay
running
there.
away from the runner.
Running away from the runner.
60 from the Sydney girl. Mumford cleanly down to Kieran Jack. Kicked to full forward. Across the front came Pike. Got it at ground level. Dragged off his kick at the last. White has a go. He can't get it to his boot. Top of the square. Lake's dispossessed. Ball pings around. Gathered by Kennedy on the turn. He screwed it around the corner, but not far enough. It's through for a behind. The Swans by 16.
Turn around, son. They actually want you. Turn around.
Jure has taken the mark from the kick in out at right half back. The left footer has Gunston on the lead to the wing, and he marks in front of Everett. It's not a bad matchup, height and size wise. Oh, Hodge came from behind, but Parker was so strong in front. The kick was not great, and Parker can send the Swans back into attack. Goes to Mitchell in the centre square. Tom Mitchell had McGlynn sliding by. Now his kick is in the Bolton direction. Had it knocked away by Lake. Comes up to Gunston again, playing across half back. Throws on the left boot. Trying to screw it back towards the boundary line. 3-on-1, the Swans in favour, but Hodge can beat 7. He beats those 3 and gains 20 metres or 40 metres almost up towards half forward. Well done, Luke Hodge. The Swans didn't play that too well. 3 players didn't decide who was going to go for the footy. And the mercurial, the brilliant, the inspiring Luke Hodge won out.
So at the throw in, can they make something of the territory here, the Hawks? Under the pack, Mumford working hard. Hale as well. Hale feeds a hand pass out, but not to anyone in particular. Everett to Bird. His kick has almost floated the wrong way. Lewis went hard into that pack. Biggs gathers. He's dragged off it by Burgoyne right against the boundary. Bruce did well to get it to Sam Mitchell. Kick up to full forward and almost got through to Roughhead, who was closing as the 4th man. He wasn't able to gather. It's off hands and out of play. 10 around from the behind post.
They want one out of this, I would think.
They do. They kick the previous to make it 16 points. They try to get some momentum. Hawthorn pushing hard. Bird stands against that to O'Keefe. Dragged off his kick. Off to Mumford. Then to Biggs. Kick out to half back. Tom Mitchell wins the ball and gains a bit of territory. Bouncing ball. Everyone hesitated around it. Most notably Stratton. He gets it though. Hand pass to Whitecross to Gibson. Fires it up to Savage. He'll kick it to the goal fount. Up they go. Roughhead. Strong.
A wonderful mark.
There were 2 against him. Closing from front and back. And he was still able to pull it in at the second grab.
Yeah, I wanted to get Savage and say, son, go down there and stand under this while those backmen trample you to death. But it actually was a good kick, and Ruffy's effort to bring it down to himself was outstanding.
Roughhead kicks his second. The Hawks double up, and they reduce the deficit to 10 points. 21 minutes played of the third term. It's Sydney 11-4-70 to Hawthorn 9-6-60.
Rampy's technique all night's been to stand off him and close him late. He just couldn't on that occasion. And Malcheski floating across as well, trying to give his mate some assistance. Ruffy was just too good for them both.
Yeah, I think Grundy's being his direct opponent is he's been a really most underestimated, I reckon. Grundy, he's been a superb, consistent forward without being a brilliant player in the way that Richards cuts in and cuts up the marks, but good defender.
Hale and Pike back in the centre with the Swans leading by 10. A free kick. It's going to be a Hale free in the middle.
Too high.
And so Hawthorn have a chance to get a little closer. The 22-minute mark. Goal here, and they're back within a kick. Big pack at centre half forward. Spango's the front man in the six-man sandwich. Puopolo shrugs the tackle. No, he can't. Jack got him, but taken high. Gee, I don't know about that. He was sliding down. Kieran Jack got him high. Puopolo quickly by hand to Lewis. 60 out from goal. Ruffy up in this contest. Not this time. The big spoil from Rampy. He worked out that one. Savage at ground level. Excellent tackle. The Swans might be in trouble here. 20 from the Hawk goal. Farmed away by Sewell. Handball back to Mitchell. On the left boot. Sam Mitchell brings it back to within a goal.
And he doesn't kick many, Sam, does he? His beautiful kick, I reckon one of the better kicks in the competition over medium range, etc. But for some reason, admit this wasn't a set shot, was on the run. Put away on his favourite side on his left foot. A very much needed goal. Now, I think they've struggled again and again. They're in the game, but they're not really in the game.
Yeah, this has been their opportunity to have the momentum in the last 5 minutes, and they've been able to capitalise, whereas Sydney, first half of that quarter, they just peppered, but were only able to kick the one goal. I reckon Mitch knew exactly what he was going to do 5 seconds before everyone else knew what was going on.
And the red vest is out for the Hawks. The substitute has been made. Spangers just walked past the interchange with the red vest, so unless they've missed him, there's someone else to come off.
Oh, I hope you confirmed that, Shannon. I thought I made an error.
Swans by 4. Lewis wins it out of the middle, so the Hawks have clawed their way into this, and they might lead in a moment. Franklin up at half forward wins a hard ball, but Malcheski smothers his hand pass and gets it out of play.
There's a lot of confusion down here. Who's going to get the red vest?
They're all running away, are they?
At the throw-in, 55 out from the Hawthorn goal. Hale puts it to the back of the pack. Kennedy, though, is onto it for the Swans. Hand pass didn't find a teammate. Coming through was Smith. His hand pass was picked off, though, by Richards. Kick out to half back. Birchall overran it and left it there for the Swans to make something of it. Up that came from Bird to Parker to half forward. Brandon Jack couldn't gather in the heat of the moment, and he loses the footy. Gunston kick around the wing. That won't work. Ike takes the intercepting mark.
Birchall, Terrell, you called it. Birchall, Terrell mislifted his head and it went straight underneath.
Ike up to half forward. They need a leaper at the pack. Doing a good job was Tom Mitchell against Sam. Off hands, though, it's out of play. The Swans have it at left half forward.
It's stiff Mitchell then. He was taken out before the ball was within 5 metres.
Boundary throw in. Swans just into attack. Lovely tap. Mumford down the throat of Kennedy in the direction of White. Nudged out. Was it fairly? No. Free kick. White against Lake. We've seen a couple of decisions go Lake's way tonight with free kicks when it appeared he might have nudged White out of the contest. This time it goes in the Swans' favour.
Yeah, he was due.
That's
side. Seemed a bit side.
Yeah, but he pushed him. He took him out of the contest. You can't push a bloke out before the ball arrives out of the contest. I'm all for that. All for that, being paid to the bloke who's made front position, taken out of the contest by an unfair hit prior to the ball arriving.
Lake still arguing.
You've got to argue. He has to argue.
White for his third. He likes this end. His 2 came in the first quarter. Jesse, the Swans need a goal. They need a steadier. They've come to the right man. They go back to a 10-point lead. 12-4 to 10-6. 25 gone third quarter.
just a pure clearance from Josh Kennedy there from the throw-in. Just nudged Jordan Lewis under the ball and just a vacuum straight towards goal. Something they've been a lot better at than Hawthorn was their takeaway from the clearance and being able to be efficient with it.
And particularly, Stephen, in this situation, centre bounces, they have murdered them in centre bounces, which is the setup that you want and need, and if you can get the first one away, it makes it so much easier to score from. They've been dominant. Their ruckmans have been murdered tonight in the rucking contest.
So the Swans repel the challenge again. They lead by 10 points. 26 and a half minutes on the clock in this third term. At the bounce, Mumford again unimpeded at the tap. Down to Kieran Jack. High ball to half forward. It'll be hard to mark. Rowan worked under it by Gibson. Bolton gathered. Hand pass for Bird, who was flying by but fumbled. He tries again at ground level and he gives it up. Straight to Gibson. Kick around the wing. Hale threw himself at it. He didn't mark. He had to release it and did. Burgoyne off to Puopolo. Now to Gibson, who found a way. Hand pass to Hale. He takes them on, giving it to Burgoyne. Kick inside the 50. Richards. Beautiful. He leads Franklin to the footy. And he takes the mark in defence. Beautifully read.
What a player. Handball behind to Malcheski. Flirts with the boundary line. Mumford makes it look okay with a stretch and one grab mark. Left half back for the Swans in the western wing. Colt called the play on. Popolo comes at him. Handball over the top to Malcheski, who's forced to kick around the corner. Still makes it 50 metres, but only as far as Hale has been solid.
And a free kick against Gibson.
Hale looks down the line momentarily sideways, but will kick up towards half forward. Mumford might get this again. The ruckman are waxing, but it spills out of his fingertips. It was slightly awkwardly in flight when he tried to clasp it. And it went out of bounds.
Spangus, we haven't made the substitute.
No, Spangus still out there.
No, and Jed Anderson's getting cool again.
So it's back in play from the throw-in. McGlynn laid a tackle and then laid off because the ball had spilt clear of his Hawthorn opponent. Didn't want to infringe. And there'll be another ball up. 60 out from the Hawthorn goal. Right half forward, 66 to 76. Swans by 10, 28 gone, third quarter.
No ruckman here.
Mumford for the Swans. Put it down underneath for O'Keefe. He was caught as soon as he got hold of it.
Spanger didn't even read that. His mates are screaming at him because the ruckman's gone off for him to get up and he didn't even get to the contest.
He does this time. McVeigh, though, under the pack. Hand pass to Kennedy, off to Malcheski. He had to give it off in a hurry, and he gave it straight to Gunston of the Hawks. He lays it off to Birchall. Kick in the Franklin direction. He goes one-handed. He can't pull it in. Under the pack, working hard as Biggs. Bruce brought him to a halt. They pile in various directions. Hand pass comes away. Puopolo, who snaps and brings it back to 4 points again. They can hang around Hawthorn, manufacturing a goal in the pack there. And Puopolo, who's having a good night, is on the score sheet. 11-6-72. They trail the Swans 12-4-76.
Important to difficulty here. Malcheski's really very, very sore. Struggling to get over the ground, limping quite badly. He's been a super player tonight for them. He's absolutely trounced his opponent and been very good on the rebound. So they don't want him to go. They're just working hard to get it. I mean, none of it's been very scientific. Just been a couple of individuals, brutal force to get it out. And Puopolo, I think you called it early, Rob. Puopolo's probably played one of his more significant games for the club in difficult circumstances. And
the Hawks are confusing themselves. They've taken the green vest off. They've had to do a count here down on the sideline because the green vest is off Jed Anderson and it's been off a while.
Swans get a free kick out of the centre through Mumford. Long ball. White goes up. Hawthorn at the back of the pack. The ever-reliable Hodge will be first to it. Does not get a kind bounce, but he bumps into Bolton, who tried to trap the foot. He put him off just enough, and the ball spills out of bounds in the right forward pocket. Is there time for another score for Sydney? 30 minutes just elapsed in the third quarter. Swans by 4 points. They've kicked 3 this quarter to the Hawks 4. Set for a thrilling finish. Hawthorn is still there. Swans have played the better footy. In it comes. Taken away by Lewis. Outside defensive 50. Pushed under the footy fairly was Franklin. Misjudged it a little bit. Comes to Malcheski. Couldn't get into his left. Onto the right. But he's got a man. Mumford loose out at half forward. He's a long way out. He's on the boundary line. Will the siren sound? He's 55 metres out. He wants to play on and bomb to the top of the square. He kicks now. Wasted no time. Where are the big flyers? Pike went up one-handed. White at ground level. Hawthorn defenders pile in on top of the footy. Dancing away with it there was Burgoyne. High kick. Was it Gibson, in fact? Comes to Richards, who came all the way out from the fence. Might be one last chance for a score here. Sends it into Bolton. Couldn't complete the mark. Parker, he's kicked one already. Spins onto the right boot. Luke Parker! Mirror image of his previous goal in the game in the first quarter. Got the crumb from 30 out. Everyone fell away from him, and he had his time and the poise to kick the Swans 13th in a 10-point lead.
Oh, they've done it so much better constructed, haven't they, inside 50. I guess that's why they're scoring at 13-4 compared with Hawthorn's 11-6. 11-6 is a fairly good conversion rate, but the opportunities they've created, they've done it and created their own space then. I thought that was a terrific effort in the finish. The last kick had absolutely no pressure on whatsoever. Hodges struggling. I think, Stephen, we sort of nodding here that he is either injured or certainly carrying something, because he's not shown the vitality in his approach. Done some individual things along the way, but not with the same consistency we expect from him. And he's been back, middle and forward.
It just worries me when he's wearing a glove and just not having that same impact he's had on usual games.
So the Swans by 10 on the cusp of three-quarter time. Roughhead tried to blick his way through the middle, and he was held up.
They can't get one out of the middle. They get locked down for a secondary bounce, or Sydney get it clear.
Pike off with a cut to his head, he's straight down the race to get some attention.
Hale down to Sam Mitchell, out the back to Burchell, so the Hawks will win a vital clearance. Can they steal one back before the siren sounds? Long inside the 50, no mark. Spanger came spilling out of the pack, but he lost the footy. Grundy works it off to Kieran Jack. He'll kick to McVeigh at half back, who marks a couple of steps in front of Hodge. He's been told to get a move on, and that is three-quarter time. Enthralling stuff between the Swans and the Hawks, and it's Sydney by 10 points at the final change. 13-4 82 to Hawthorn 11-6 72. Goal kickers 3 for White, 2 for Rowan and for Parker, with singles to Tom Mitchell, Kieran Jack, McGlynn, Bolton, Pike and Mumford. For the Hawks, 2 each to Roughhead and Franklin, with 1 apiece to Lewis, Sam Mitchell, Burchell, Gunston, Hale, Bruce and Puopolo. At the final change, it's Sydney by 10 points over the Hawks. In the NRL tonight, final scores: Newcastle 26 defeated Brisbane 18. The Rabbitohs 32 defeated the West Tigers 18. This is Grandstand AFL on ABC Local Radio, News Radio and Grandstand Digital. It's the Swans by 10 points at three-quarter time. Stephen Gillam and David Parkin on Grandstand AFL.
Well, we were just looking at some of the I guess, statistics to validate our view of the game. Inside 50, 48 to 35 is in, I think, modern terms, that's a bit of a smashing, isn't it? I think it is. And Stephen, the 15-8, where the game starts and where you get your structures where you want them, etc. 15-8 out of the middle, that's nearly twice as good, and that probably means that the percentage of the inside 50s maybe 13-4. I mean, Hawthorn might have defended that better than I thought, but they've had access directly out of centre bounces when you have things the way you want to in terms of the people in there and the space, etc. you want to produce. It's very hard to rebound it once it gets to the opposition and come back. You've got a chance to get behind the ball. It's amazing, really, that Hawthorn are only 10 points behind, in my opinion. I reckon they've had 6 or 8 they've carried, who've just not been able to perform, including Hodgie. Hodgie looks to me like he is struggling to get over the ground. That last run with McVeigh, and he started off to get it to a kick that was a wild kick. He got there 5 metres clear, and Hodgie couldn't even compete. So there are some individuals amongst that Hawthorn rely on. I thought Sam Mitchell probably got up and going a bit in that quarter and delivered a nice goal as well as some good inside stuff. But to me, the major, we might talk a bit after the game, the major problem with Hawthorn has been the dominance of the 2 tap ruckman for Munford, etc. And Bailey has been, this is the time when you know how much they appreciate Bailey being there, because he's been pretty consistent in that department. They haven't got first look at it often at all, particularly when Spanger's in there. It's not only no contest, it's a clear delivery of the ball from that situation by his opponent. So, and I'm surprised. I reckon they have to be able to run. 7 or 8 of the Sydney players are in the hands being massaged then, not one Hawthorn player, so there might be a bit of a struggle there, but you think you'd increase your speed rather than the height of a player. And I know that he has been rucking, but he's been rucking with no consequence. So you'll have to go with Roughhead, and you have to go with Hale and get another running bloke on. They've chosen not to, which I think's an error.
Yeah, definitely you're at your most vulnerable around stoppages in terms of setting up behind the ball to defend a team, and they've just had it too easy, Sydney, on too many occasions, and they just seem to have a better plan going forward because of that. They've got 2 talls forward all the time in White and Pike, or however combination you want, and if they're not marking it, then they're bringing their ground level players into the game, whereas Hawthorn just haphazardly smashed the ball forward. Franklin was lucky to get on the end of one at one stage, but they're working a lot harder for their goals and their scoring shots. And Sydney have brought finals-like intensity, and we mentioned throughout that quarter that just around the clearances and around the contest, their fundamentals to get the clean hands or quick kicks from the contest forward has been much better.
Shannon, just quickly, Mike Pike doesn't seem to be out there. Am I missing him?
No, yep, he came off about a minute to go and had a gash
still down
above
in
his
the room?
right eye, so it probably means he's getting some stitches. But the Hawks have made their substitute, Jed Anderson from the Darwin Buffaloes, straight out in the middle, and Savage is off.
So it's the Swans by 10 points entering the final term, and they'll win the clearance out of the middle through McGlynn. High ball up to the 50. Whitecross makes the spoil for the Hawks. Tom Mitchell trying to crash through for the Swans. Hodge stood against him and won the footy. His kick is for Hale, who sprawls to mark. Good fingertipper just above the turf. Back to Hodge, who drives the ball up towards the 50. Gunston round the laces. Gathers, gives it to Anderson. His kick was smothered on the way through, and Melcheski gets hold of it. Off to Kennedy, hitting the tackle, rounded up by Anderson, who immediately makes his presence felt by holding the ball.
Outstanding tackle. He come on straight away and injected the energy that Hawthorn needed.
Well, to clamp Stephen, to clamp Kennedy, hard man to tackle, and he tackled him so well he had no chance of getting out, took him to the ground, the ball hit the ground.
Grabbed his arm. It's a real art these days. Current players are trying to grab an arm because they are so good at standing up, especially a lot of these Swans, and still getting the handball away.
19-year-old in his 5th game, Jed Anderson from 46 metres out. Never flinched with the kick. He lands the goal, and it gives the Hawks a real vibrancy. They all come to the youngster, and the margin is again back to 4 points.
Smith's gone to the wing, and he's got young Cunningham, I think, on the wing. So brought him up out of the front half. That's a straight winging position. Jed Anderson is actually one of the 4 who has gone into centre bounces, and opposed to Kennedy and O'Keefe. It's a better setup, and Hill will oppose Mumford. Hale will oppose Mumford.
Might have earned himself a final with that 10 seconds of tackle and goal. Jed Anderson, great start, the sub. He's come on and got the Hawks back within a kick, and they go forward again. Mitchell desperate. That's Sam of the Hawthorn variety, not Tom of the Swan. Spanger tried to be wrestled off it, but stood up pretty well. Taken to ground again was Kennedy. McGlynn goes in hard, but Hawthorn, they've stepped up early in this quarter. Gunston surrounded by red and whites, can't get rid of the football effectively. He still fights on at ground level. Spanger comes in over the top to lend assistance. Finally it's farmed out through legs. Back to Sam Mitchell, back inside 50. Oh, the bounce might favour Roughhead. Can he push off Grundy? Oh, tried to sock it through the hands. Puopolo, he was taking a tackle. Back to Roughhead. Brilliant goal. Only 15 metres out for the impossible angle. He and Puopolo embrace in the forward pocket. They teamed so well. The smaller Puopolo feeding the bigger Ruffy. And with the skills of Peter Dacos, he rammed it through for a brilliant goal. And the Hawks lead by 2.
Great call, Rob. It was a good combination, wasn't it? Ruffy read the bounce better. He was going forward and saw that it was going to go high. Came back quicker than his opponent because he read it better. Got involved in the air. Puopolo went out. It was fantastic to keep it in play and manoeuvre it round and get it into the pathway so that Ruffy could do his job. And Ruffy underneath and round. It was a very difficult goal to kick. They're up and going. You can sense a bit about Hawthorn from that first centre bounce.
So 2 quick goals and it's Hawthorn by 2 points. They hadn't led since the opening stages of the game. Kennedy takes it out of the middle and the Swans are immediately to full forward, but Lake has the better of White, who fell over before the marking contest. Off to Whitecross, clear of the defensive 50 for Smith. Hand pass round the wing for Sewell and back to Smith, who runs. He sets it long in the rough head direction. Spoil made by Richards. McVeigh at ground level. Hand pass didn't go to a teammate. Gunston gets hold of it. Off to Franklin. Standing start from 50. He lashes it at goal and misses to the right. Hawthorn by 3.
You hate to say that, but there is an intent change. Is that the word?
Intensity.
An intensity change, no doubt.
And another change, guys. Malcheski is off and Mitch Morton is on. The substitute has been acted for the Swans now.
Blow for Sydney. It's been such a quarterback, Malcheski. His beautiful left foot kicking. A lot more contested ball this year. He's really taken on his opponents.
Agree with that, Rob. Made him a better player, a more complete player.
Terrific year. Luke Parker's been good tonight. Kicks from half back. Rowan doesn't make it though. Gibson floats across the front of the pack. A one grab mark gives to Sam Mitchell. Forced to go backwards by hand. Long to Birchall, who pushed away from Bolton, then runs away from Bolton with a bounce. Inside the centre square. Lovely kick to Gunston, who's too tall and strong. Pushed off McVeigh. Some matchups now favouring Hawthorn. He's 70 from goal. Vacant goal square. Will he bomb long? He'll go in the Bruce direction. Always clever. Bruce into the side. Puopolo, the smallest man in the pack, couldn't quite bring the mark down. He was up against O'Keefe at the bottom of that pack, who now pleads his case maybe for his mark or maybe a little high.
He's looking for the Motlop one from last week, he was.
Oh, what a mark that was, wasn't it? Mumford. Bursting through Roughhead for his 4th. The Coleman medal winner surely celebrates and moves to 68 with his 4th goal. Simply brilliant. He played like a rover, burst through, read the tap into the goal square unattended, and the Hawks burst to a 9-point lead.
Well, I apologise to all listeners. I couldn't see this coming, Steve, and I don't know whether about you. They struggled for so long. There was no integration of effort. There was no cleanness of take and give. It's just been a command. Now, whether Sydney might be able to find something, but I looked at them at 3/4 time. They had worked so hard to get into that position without putting the game away. We might have a different last quarter than we probably thought we were going to receive.
Yeah, look, the first half of that third quarter, they worked so hard, but only got the 1 goal for their effort, and that's what's cost them.
3 goals in 6 minutes from the Hawks. And you wonder if the Swans have got an answer to this burst. Pike's back on the ground, but Burgoyne's winning it out of the middle. Hand pass to Lewis. Up inside the 50, Puopolo against Everett. Hails the crummer. He gathers. He snaps. He rolls it across the face of goal.
Sean Burgoyne going into the middle has been so important.
It's a class act, isn't
he? Just makes a huge impact wherever he goes.
McVeigh from fullback spots up O'Keefe, can go over the top to the running Richards. The orange boots, short and clever to Bird. Almost up to the centre circles. The kick inside 50. This might be a mark to Morton. The sub is on. Knocked away at the last moment though by Gibson. Fighting on at ground level, Jack. Clever to Parker. Parker has 3, and it's back to a 3-point ball game. Make that a 4-point ball game. 88-92.
You were the one, Jared, who talked about major fluctuations or major changes in momentum. It's happened again tonight. You get a classic. I sniffed it last year in quarter plane, and I'm here on official duty. It's fantastic.
And that's how the grand final went in that last quarter. It looked all Hawthorn, and then the Swans muscled up and seized it back.
And they'll remember. Players are very good at remembering that.
And it's only the early stages of the final term.
That's a long way to play yet.
Hawks by 4. Bounce back in the middle. Hale knocks it to the side. McGlynn is onto it for the Swans. Hand pass to O'Keefe. Broke the tackle of Lewis. Kicks up near half forward. Brandon Jack had to make the spoil and he did it well. Tom Mitchell hand passed over his head. He couldn't find Morton, so he goes again. Mitchell to Brandon Jack's run down by Burgoyne. Forces the turnover. Bruce to Sam Mitchell. The turnover comes again though, overwhelmed by the Parker pressure. Sam. But Sam Mitchell lays the tackle to keep it in dispute. Trying to get through as Biggs, the first gamer. He couldn't. Anderson has a go. He's over the footy. The umpire circles. The ball must have just come from his grasp. It has. It threatens to feed out, but ultimately won't. You wouldn't think. Lewis is dragged down with it. He'll be balled up 50 out from the Sydney goal.
2 left long, so that's dangerous for players. Left it far too long now, Pike.
So the congestion at centre half forward for Sydney. Pike now bandaged. Funnily enough, since he's been back on, the Swans have lifted. So a correlation there. He was missing with a cut on his head. Shannon Byrne told us. Dane Rampy pushes it along in front. He's got Sewell for company, one of the best one-on-one men in the business. They go to ground. Well done by Hill. He fought on and came and lent assistance to Sewell. Brilliant Sewell on his back. Flips to Birchall. This is superb. Comes to Spanger. Spanger can play on quickly. Gives to Hill. He can break it inside, attacking 50 to Roughhead. Sewell's work was superb.
And my 2 whipping boys, Savage and Spanger, have produced 2 very, very good acts to get this to finally into Roughhead's hands.
What a shot
boys.
From 50 outs, 5 metres in from the boundary at left half forward. A deep breath. An uplift of the shoulders. Roughhead. Jarrett! Just away to the left. It was headed just the right side of the major upright, but swung at the last moment for a behind. It's a 5-point ball game. 10 gone last quarter.
McVeigh played onto himself. He dinks it out to Rampy at the defensive 50. He'll kick out to half-back for McGlynn. It was a good kick. McGlynn plays on. His wasn't so good. It flops short for Whitecross. Hand pass to Hodge. He's got the outrider in Burgoyne. And Burgoyne can dart it half forward. Kick long into the pocket. Grundy sets himself. Bruce came over the top. And he's pinched the mark from the taller defender.
I'd like to see that again, but he's pretty confident, wasn't he, Bruce? He followed through on the first hit. Appeared to me to come off the bigger man's hands, but...
Luke Bruce tucked away in the right forward pocket. It's a severe enough angle. He'll be 25 metres out from goal. Bruce leans on the drop punt and he splits the middle. His second. And the Hawks nudge it out to an 11-point lead. 15-9-99 to the Swans, 14-4-88.
Dean Rampy just needed to do a better job of looking after Heath Grundy, who was plonked in front, and he let Luke Bruce into the contest and jump at it.
He only had 7 or 8. Bruce, he excites you, doesn't he? I know he's a cult figure there, but that might have been his 8th possession for the night. Usually does kick goals, but doesn't do enough. He's not a hard worker without the ball, I don't think.
Yeah, I think when Cyril's out of the team, he cops the tougher defender.
That's true.
Did you see what was wrong with Malcheski, Shane?
Yeah, his left foot just underneath. They've applied some ice, so a foot injury to Malcheski.
Kennedy tries to burst through a couple. Does somehow farm it out to McGlynn, who wrenches a handball, but only as far as Hodge, who rides a bump from Brandon Jack and sends it up towards half forward, where Burgoyne and Grundy jostle, and behind them Richards and Franklin see it out of bounds.
They'd be very happy for Franklin to actually do something in this part of the game. He certainly got them up and away early, but he's been well held. 12 Richards.
12 minutes gone last quarter. It's the Hawks by 11. They've kicked 4 goals to 1 in this quarter. Swans have led nearly all night, but at the moment when the heat's on, it's been Hawthorn. Rowan tried to get it out, but it's been ripped away from him. Hills kicks dangerous, although going by the toe was Jack, and it didn't come off. It came to Gibson, who went to Smith. He's about to be run down. Was it holding the football or play on? It is holding the ball. Will advantage be paid? Morton gives it off to Cunningham. An opportunity for the Swans. Can they get it inside attacking 50 to a free man? White sets himself. One grab. Well done by Lake. Just to interfere in a legal way and bring the ball to ground to Mitchell, and away goes Whitecross.
Whitecross guides the pass to Spanger.
What a brave effort by Lake. Terrific effort to go backwards and up and save that.
Spanger inboard to Duray, who can link it up with Lewis, and it's the Hawks who go forward. Roughhead in front. Grundy makes the spoil. Burgoyne's the crummer. A burst of speed. Archers are back, but he can't beat Rowan. Rowan sticks the tackle and he wins holding the ball. The Swans have played on. They might wish they hadn't.
Yep.
Big's got the rush of blood. His kick on the way out. Spanger over the top of Pike. It falls the way of Birchall. The Hawks come straight back to Puopolo, back to Birchall, and inside the 50 for Gunston.
It's on the edge of your seat stuff, isn't it? I'm jumping around like a 4-year-old here. It's terrific football.
Such a good tackle from Rowan.
Wasn't it?
And Biggs just should have left the ball, given it back, and let them set up out of the back pocket.
Just that experience and composure.
And he's been so good, hasn't he?
Yep.
The kid's been so good. You hope he won't be sitting on the end of that as the difference.
Jack Gunston's such a sharp shooter, and this is no exception. From 45 out, he lands his second, and the Hawks have a buffer. They lead by 17 points, nearing the halfway mark of the final term.
Well, the Hawthorn faithful might have seen it coming. I can't say that at three-quarter time, other than the look of a very tired group. 7 of their players were on the ground having very strong leg massages, which is unusual. You might see 1 or 2. Not a single Hawthorn player was down in the trainer's hands. That was the only one, was only a small indication, but the ferocity which they've got about this last score, despite still the dominance of the ruckman for Sydney. Mumford has been fantastic and Pike has its centre bounces, but that's been taken away now by the ground level work that Hawthorn are putting in.
Sewell and McGlynn exchanging some pushing and shoving as the ball was sent down, and Hawthorn go forward again. Mitchell brilliant to Lewis. Where's Ruffy? Sets, leaps. Spoil from Richards was good. Bruce, clever. Through the pack. Luke Bruce from 30 out. Curls around and hits the post. Oh, he read that beautifully, did Bruce. And it would have been a ripping goal and made it almost impossible for the Swans to come back. They stay alive. They trail by 3 goals.
Kick in happened quickly, and Rampy took it in the back pocket. And the probing kick to half back. Pike couldn't mark, or he just flings the boot at it. White cross smothers, and it goes off hands out of play.
Terrific to seeing Jude Bolton and Hodge going head to head here. That's a lovely combination.
This is a powerful burst. 5 goals to 1 in this final term, Hawthorn's way. From the throw in, Sam Mitchell threatens underneath. He slides at it. Didn't gather. Parker disputes it. Lewis has a go. Ball comes out the way of Hale. Sam Mitchell goes again near the boundary. Tries to double back. He gets hit by McGlynn in the tackle, and that's holding the ball. Kennedy claims the advantage off to Bolton. They're wide open with runners. Inboard to Parker. Kick to full forward. Didn't favour White. Gibson smashes it away to the back. He'll gather it in the pocket, and he's got a bit of support. Hand pass on the way out is okay. Duray will gather at the defensive 50, and they can set up round the outer wing.
To Anderson. He had to wait under it, but he's going to be okay because the Swan went sliding by. Duray there to lend assistance. Kicks up in the Franklin direction, who got rid. Maybe a little poke in the eye. Accidental on Grundy, who's still nursing a sore eye. And so Buddy runs to 50. He sets sail for goal. Roughhead's going to have a couple of Swans to beat. Gathered well by the big Mumford. Back to Richards. Richards from the back pocket towards half-back flank. Bolton on these tired older legs. I won't say old, I'll just say older. And it dribbles out of bounds at left half forward for Hawthorn.
Anderson didn't have an awareness over there. That's a worry. The ball came along. I had no idea there was an opponent coming in and should have cleaned him up and lost possession of the ball.
Thrown in half forward for the Hawks. Hale to the front. Tap though was gathered by Bird. Off to O'Keefe. Into Kennedy. Up to Jude Bolton. Needs one more. Up to Kennedy. Hit hard by Duray. On to Morton. Kick was smothered by Lake, who came charging at him. And that's where it ends on the broadcast wing.
Another brave act by Lake. He knew what he was going to cop in the midships there. He copped a full kick in the ball into his stomach. I don't think he's too good.
No.
And another person not too good. Grundy's come off with blood pouring out of his nose after that hit from Buddy Franklin. So the evidence there, he was definitely hit.
Well, I wonder what that looks like. He's already been reported, Franklin, for a bump. At the ball up, Mumford over the top, and it comes the way of Hale. He swings his kick to half forward. Gunston threw himself at it. Looked like he'd marked it, not paid.
Come on up.
It's tackled by Everett. And Gunston will be fuming as he rises.
That's where the boundary umpire should be able to help the central umpire.
Wondering what more he could have done.
Yeah.
Puopolo slips away under the pack, holding the ball. He didn't get through this time. He was playing for the high contact, trying to get underneath. Couldn't beat the tackles. McVeigh to Biggs. Back edge of the centre square. Oh, he hangs it up a little bit. O'Keefe had to wait underneath. Anderson made the spoil. Spanger is onto it. Gives it off to Puopolo. Back to Spanger. Flips it up over the top. Anderson is dumped. Spanger though to Gunston. The Hawks plough on into the pocket. Roughhead has to go the tackle. Rowan does will. And the Swans should get out of defence.
The kick from Parker, or was it Morton I should say, he was out of bounds when he kicked it. Has to come all the way back to left half forward.
It's a free kick here. It should have been. Was it as he kicked it, so it's a free kick to the player who kicked it? It wasn't after he kicked it. I guess I don't understand that one.
So Mitch Morton at right half back has it for the Swans. He wants to switch play. Bruce was wise to it and quickly covered it. So all the way back to the goal square to Richards. Swans can go forward through Everett. Receive from McGlynn. A late hit there from Smith was okay. Just held him up once the mark was taken. Sydney now have it at that left half back on the eastern side. Ball comes into McVeigh, who stretches and marks. Sewell, as he always does, very energetic on the mark, trying to put the kicker off. McVeigh not sure where to go. Swans, well, they've got time, but their energy seems to have dissipated. Little poke over the top. Almost 20 minutes gone last quarter. It's a 3-goal lead to Hawthorn. Brilliant last quarter. 5 goals to 1. Up towards half forward. Lovely stretch and mark.
Got Anderson on Mumford deep.
O'Keefe, the veteran, sends it in towards centre half forward, finds Kieran Jack. Now he's got a standing start here. I prefer him on the run, but he can kick it a long way. The man on the mark is 50. Swans need a goal. Kieran Jack, one of the coast skippers, doesn't go for goal. Goes to the pocket. Mumford up and takes a ripping mark. Good lead. Shaw hands, one grab clunk. And Mumford from 25 out, 45-degree angle can bring it back to a 2-goal ball game.
You saw the matchup.
Yeah, poor organisation by Hawthorn. Mumford coming from the bench just drifted forward. Jed Anderson was left to hung out to dry.
Mumford for his second goal, 1 in the third. For the Swans 15th. The former Cat has gold. And Sydney stay alive. 12 points the margin. 20 and a half minutes gone last term.
I thought it was a poor kick off the boot going into goal. I thought, well, if they do mark it, it'll be on a very difficult angle. But he saw that's a terrible matchup, isn't it? How that can happen. Plenty of time to actually make a reorganisation. The defence didn't happen. He won't show up well at the review on Monday behind the goal. There'll be a lot of people pointing at each other and asking questions.
So we've hit time on of the final term. It's Hawthorn by 12 points. Mumford followed the footy back into the middle. And he'll compete with Hale. They've been so good with the centre clearances, they'd love one now. Kennedy wrestles for it with Puopolo. Neither could get clear. Sewell has taken to ground. O'Keefe got hold of him. And I'll do it again.
It's good that Puopolo has actually gone for just being a defensive forward who kicks occasional goal to a really good on-baller.
Mumford down to Kennedy. He wedges out a kick. It rolls up to half forward. Duray cuts it off. Hand pass to Hodge. All bang. He got hit and dispossessed. Burgoyne to Duray, but he was under all sorts of pressure. Birchall spikes on it into the middle. McGlynn is onto it. Hand pass to Parker. Swings it out looking for Kieran Jack. Hills against him. Jude Bolton goes through the pack, but he's down in a tackle. Burgoyne gets hold of it. Up to Hill. Harried kick into the middle. Over the top went Biggs, but he's given away the free kick in his endeavours. Over the shoulder. Bruce with a soft one.
And he's in the centre square. He sends it out in the Sam Mitchell direction, who marks on the wing on the logo, eastern side. Hill makes the lead only 15 metres further down the ground, but they've broken out wide to the half-forward flank, knocked away from Anderson. Brilliant play by Mitchell, went in to lend assistance, mops up, spearing ball to centre half-forward, and Gunston definitely within range, or he elects to pass. He was 55 out. He finds Birchall, who's a lovely long kick, generally on the run. He wants to dish off as well. The move's been made by Lake all the way up from defence, and Brian Lake slides into the chest mark with some hard running in front of Morton. And Brian Lake, with his up and unders at David Park and love so much, can line up from 50 metres out on a 45-degree angle and probably seal it at the 23-minute mark of the last quarter. Hawks lead by 2. Lake for his first goal of the night and for a 3-goal lead.
Rob, we're just wrong not playing at Etihad with a closed roof. That's all I can say.
The boos of the Swans fans. The staggering start. It's out to the right. Swinging for a goal. Mobbed by Roughhead. Mobbed by Gibson and Gunston. And Lake kicks the goal that probably gives the points to the Hawks and top spot on the 2013 ladder. They lead by 18.
Another sneaky one off the bench. Just sitting there.
He came. Oh, you saw that, and I didn't. I sort of picked it up. So he's just come straight from the bench to run forward.
Yeah. Hodgie was picking up Mike Pike down in defence while he was off, and Hawthorn got the ball and he sprinted forward, saw the opportunity, and Birch had the awareness to just deliver a 15-metre pass inside 50.
It's his first goal as a Hawk. He was prone in his latter days to kick a few for the Bulldogs. It's a wonky bounce and that will be called back. 17-10 to 15-4. 6 goals to 2 in this final term. Hawthorn by 18 points. Kieran Jack out of the middle, went off the ground. He gets it up to the 50 and it took a wicked bounce. It favoured Morton. Hand pass to Everett. He goes backward to Bird. Was an unusual decision. Slips a tackle. Hand pass to Kieran Jack over the top to Morton. He's 45 out. He'll seize the moment and kick the goal. So at the 25-minute mark, a team that's hard to kill still has a pulse. They're down by 2 goals, the Swans. And Morton with his first in what might prove to be his final game.
Still be Hawthorn fans and players having nightmares about Mitch Morton and what he was able to do in the grand final last year. Who knows? Could get his timing right again.
It's a good call. It's a good goal.
Doesn't need much opportunity, does he?
No.
Impact on the scoreboard.
That's
knows
true.
where they are.
I think they'll be pretty disappointed with Franklin's performance from about quarter time on. He's made no impact. I know whether it was the incident where he's been reported, seems to have gone backwards from that point.
Ready to cheer a valiant effort by their boys. The red and white fans now think there may be a glimmer of hope still for victory. Morton is so clean. Little tap-ons, little nudges. Passes the ball, but when he's around goal himself, doesn't miss too many. Here go the Hawks though. Mitchell gave back to Sean Burgoyne. High kick up towards half forward. Rowan in front. Spike backwards. McVeigh will come up with it. He does. Finds his way through traffic. Hooks the kick back towards the wing. Up goes Mitchell. He couldn't take the mark under strong pressure. Back to Sam Mitchell of Hawthorn. His kick wasn't great though. Rare mistake. It was under pressure. Back to Tom Mitchell of Sydney. Over the top to O'Keefe. Can run onto it. Vacant goal square. If he wants to go that far, he doesn't. He went to Morton. Lovely intercept there by Hawthorn. That was Stratton. And there'll be a boundary throw in 30 metres around from the Swans' goal. They trail by 2.
Well, O'Keefe would like that kick again. At the throw in the pocket. A lot of players around it and they contest ferociously. Lewis took possession and he was wrapped up.
Both sides with a player behind the footy. Spanger for Hawthorn and Rowan, it looks like, for Sydney.
27 minutes ticking up on the clock. Hawthorn by 2 goals. Sydney have it forward. Desperate to get hold of it from this stoppage. Sewell has a couple of goes. He's wrapped up by McVeigh. The umpire circles and will be required to intervene again. Weary bodies still cannoning into each other. Hale edged out Mumford, wins clear possession, but his kick is intercepted by Richards. The Swans get it into open space. Can they make anything of it? Just a blazing kick back to the 50 and Spanger. He fills the hole and he takes the mark.
Hasn't been so good since I've condemned him.
Always the way.
And he's got a man loose on the wing. Burgoyne, and he's got Hill vacant further down the ground.
How good's Burgoyne been? That's one that we haven't mentioned enough. He's been super.
Second half.
Yeah, second half. That's what
27 touches, David.
27.
Up to half forward. Big leap from Roughhead against a few Swans. Couldn't bring it to ground. Some lovely tackling though at ground level by the big man. And he flung O'Keefe out of bounds with the ball. Throw in. 50 metres around from the Hawks goal, northern end, right half forward. 1-1-2 plays 100. Hawks by 2 goals. 28 gone last quarter. Tap down from behind from Hale. Hawks at the bottom of the pack. A dangerous place to be all night. The umpires have been hot on the holding the ball decision. Franklin goes after the footy hard, but it comes to McGlynn, the former Hawk. Well done, Lewis. Back to Sewell. Out to Mitchell. Handball back to Lewis. Sweeping handball over the top. Who's he got? Smith. Immediately claimed by Cunningham. Able to get the handball away, but only as far as O'Keefe, who's tackled by Bruce. Comes to McVeigh. Bruce has claimed him. Shrugged by McVeigh. Dangerous here. They've gone back into the teeth of goal, the Swans. Quick kick out of the pack towards the boundary line. Slipping over there was a Hawk player. Coming up with this Stratton. Back to Sewell's. That player who slipped up, but he had a second chance and gives to Spanger. Kicks it inside 50 again. Hawthorn go forward. Bruce waits under it. Spoil comes from Biggs. It's out of bounds in the forward pocket.
I really am glad they left Spanger on.
Just putting a coach's hat on, I'd go and man Spanger up. If I was Sydney.
Stephen, don't be nasty.
Hawks by 12, 29 minutes played of the final term. At the throw in the forward pocket for them. Hale does a power of work trying to release it. Smith, he gets hold of it, but he's down in a tackle. And there it will be balled up 30 out from goal. Any score will finish it, but the territory heavily ladled Hawthorn's way. Sewell in the pocket in a 2-man tackle. He does release it, but doesn't create any play with it. McVeigh can't get out. Puopolo slips low, gives it to Smith. Flying shot at goal. It's across the face. Now Everett off the behind line, so the Swans have got to dare and go the distance. Hand pass to Richards, who has a bounce. He kicks it as far as he can. Tom Mitchell and Hodge came together. Spanger pushes against them though, and he taps it up to Gibson.
Oh, David, he's playing the star Spanger manner. Mitchell off to Spanger again, but he's crunched in a tackle by Parker, who's been tremendous for the Swans. There'll be a ball up.
Oh, you get the Norm Smith medal while you're young.
Right in front of the interchange gate. 30 minutes gone. Hawks by 2 goals. Brilliant game. Brilliant appetizer for next week's finals. There it is. The Hawks win 17-10, 112 and grab top spot on the 2013 AFL ladder. The Swans 16-4, 100.
It was 6 goals to 3 in the final term after the Swans had led all night. They led by 18 points at quarter time, by 9 at half time, 10 at 3/4 time, but the Hawks prevailed by 12. And all this is a momentary pause in hostilities, because next Friday night at the MCG they will meet again. First versus fourth it will be. Hawthorn and the Sydney Swans. They finish off the home and away season here, and they'll open up the final series next. So Hawthorn 17-10, 112 defeat the Sydney Swans 16-4, 100. The goal kickers for the winners, 4 for Roughead, 2 for Gunston, Bruce and Franklin, with singles to Lewis, Mitchell, Birchall, Lake, Hale, Puopolo and Anderson. For the Sydney Swans, 3 each for White and Parker, a couple for Rowan and Mumford, and singles for Tom Mitchell, Morton, Kieran Jack, McGlynn, Bolton and Pike. The Hawks by 12 points over the Swans. It's their 19th win of the season. They'll finish a game clear on top of the ladder at least. The crowd tonight, 37,980. They would have been thoroughly entertained and teased for what's to come next week.
I know where that's. Well, I shouldn't argue words with you, Jared. You're the expert. We're not about teased by it, but I think when we're setting up before the game, have we been given this result and the manner which it's played? I would have thought, and Sydney had a very tight centre siren when they actually came back in, shook hands, particularly McGlynn and Kennedy. It's interesting to see that bond that still exists there. But then went into a very tight group for a couple of minutes, and I guess the captain, McVeigh, one of those would have been. There's a very serious discussion about that. And I think from a coaching, or if I was a leader in that team and playing, I think they showed enough of what is the substance of Sydney, if you like. I just think it, and with a few of the younger players who were very good, Cunningham was okay, but Young Biggs was terrific. He sort of disappeared a bit at the finish. So with what they brought to play, having got to 2 goals, played the better football for longer. I reckon Hawthorn played 15 minutes in the first quarter and a brilliant last quarter. There might have been a couple of times where they got hold of the game for short periods, but there's no doubt that Sydney played the better football for longer tonight, didn't get the result. So I think they can walk off minus the 4 points. Nothing's changed. They play Hawthorn again this week, so nothing's lost. But I think they've gained a fair bit in terms of belief in themselves. They'll get some individuals back that certainly will make them better. Whether they're as match fit to do the job that they have to do is another question. But I think they can come better in personnel. So for me, Hawthorn will be pleased, getting a bit of a drubbing, but they're able to come back and survive and win the game. They were okay winners in the finish. But I think both sides will walk away with a bit of comfort, if you like, from the game. I don't think there'll be. I think the uncomfortable part might be Franklin and the result of the hit, which certainly will be questioned. There's no doubt what Jared said will be questioned. But to me, a lot of good from Sydney's point of view, and some good courage from Hawthorn to come back against Sydney, who have belted them in those situations before. So I think if you can ever say 2 winners on the night, in the sense what both teams and coaches would want to walk away pretty close to expectation.
Yeah, I think so. Bit of game of 2 halves. Sydney would be wrapped with their first half. They just weren't able to maintain that energy and spirit for the full 4 quarters, and I guess cash in on that good work they'd done early on in the third quarter and capitalise on their dominance around the clearances, especially and the rock contests and centre bounces. We mentioned at half time that there were probably 5 or 6.
Let me interrupt you for half a tick, Stephen. I'll just farewell our news radio audience who depart us here at the Olympic Stadium. Hawthorn 17-10, 112 over the Sydney Swans 16-4, 100 to begin the final round of the home and away season. As you were.
Yeah, there were 5 or 6 passengers probably for Hawthorn that we thought we could get more out of, and I guess Mitchell going into the midfield and spending a little bit more time at half forward. Burgoyne certainly in the midfield. They started to second jump around stoppages with Lewis getting his hands on the ball to compete 2v1 in the ruck. Helped a little bit with that, but certainly Sydney can walk away knowing that they've got the ingredients to go into next week. At times they did play with finals intensity and pressure, and that's what they're going to need to bring next week against Hawthorn at the MCG.
The game next week, I think will draw. It was the replay of the grand final next week, pretty significant. I think it will draw a magnificent crowd at the MCG on Friday night, and I think the expectation again will be delivered against. I'll be very surprised they don't come to play.
Yeah, a little bit of a worry about Malcheski for Sydney. Icing up his foot. Hopefully he's all right.
Let's head down into the Hawthorn room. Shannon Byrne is headed down there. Shan?
Yes, thanks, Jared. Well, they're just walking in smiles aplenty, as you could imagine. And Brian Lake just embraces Buddy Franklin. And they're just walking in one by one, because obviously it's been a very tough game, and they're just now joining the circle. And we can hear this song sung in full voice after they claim top of the ladder. Here is the Hawthorn Football Club.
sound of the minor premiers, Hawthorn, who set themselves up for this run at, it's been 12 months trying to get back to where they were against the Sydney Swans last year. They've done all they can through the home and away season, and now they'll test themselves through the last 4 weeks of the season. In the second last round last year, they edged the Swans at the SCG, and then that was reversed when things got to the pointy end, but they'll head to the MCG. They'll be favourites, but there are questions. The most substantial question will be around Lance Franklin and how the match review panel assesses his bump, which could very well see him miss a qualifying final with potentially a 225-point penalty, the guilty plea, so he'd miss 1 week and return for the Hawks' second final. When you left the SCG after round 22 last year, Hawthorn had prized out a result against Sydney.
A bit similar to tonight.
Bit more thrilling, I reckon, in a way.
Yes, they had to do it from behind in the last few minutes. I think Sewell kicked a ripper on the turn and on the run, which sealed it. Was the total distance?
I reckon,
was 6 points?
I reckon it might have been 8 points.
8 points,
at the end.
Just over a goal.
The Swans were in better nick than they were here tonight. So your point is, you leave here tonight and John Longmire goes, well, we got back to what we are. That's what we stand for. That's how we play. And now you bring in half a dozen better personnel, and they'll be formidable. On Friday night.
They will be. We talk about that, but Goods is Goods was.
We'll start with the ones we know. Hanbury, yes.
Hanbury will be
Smith,
back.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Tippett, yes.
Yeah, Tippett will be back. That's 2.
So there's no risk in any of them.
That's 1 extra running midfielder. Hanbury's had a sensational year, so they won't get as tired in the kind of work output they have to do. They can share it a bit better. And he's been playing long enough not for the outing not to affect his condition. Yep, I'd agree with that.
So he probably knocks out Brandon Jack on what we saw tonight.
Brandon Jack struggled. He
got Smith,
half a dozen
who knocks out Biggs.
Yes, that'd be true.
And Smith he's a terrific player.
But Biggs he might be roundabout. He's done enough tonight to suggest that he can play.
And then Tippett goes in as your focal point. And I reckon tonight will have given them a nice lesson as you don't just have to kick it to him. That's a multi-pronged forward line, so use the prongs.
Yeah, and that will worry Hawthorn because that's there. And when they lose one off, as you point out, when Hodge has to go back or Burgoyne has to go back and actually take a tall, if they can exploit it. And you remember the one that Munford running in ended up on Anderson about 2'6" next to him, and the kick was a good one. Sensed it and saw it and put it into that spot. They have multiple goal kickers, and that might be the best lesson, Jared, that you're talking about that they've learnt from tonight. And somehow Tippett has to make that happen in the same way as we think Buddy Franklin's been doing it and making the others, whether it's Dunstan or Gunston, I should say, or Roughhead or Hale, who happens to be down there. What I think comes out of tonight's game more than anything else, and I just mentioned on the way through, is that Bailey is an absolute key. And I don't think I've ever got to the point of thinking that, but having seen them play tonight, get smashed at centre bounces, absolutely smashed. They ought to set up the easiest goals of the night, no doubt, was set up by clearances from centre bounces for Sydney, who got in the way they won struck it and kicked the easiest goals of the night, in my opinion. They'll have to do better in there. So I hope Bale is not he's been such a, you know him well, he's been such a terrific young man and overcome 3 knee reconstructions to become a very important part. So, Jared, I think there are some learnings. They would be, you're right, they'll go away confident they can get better in personnel. The people who are placing, Reed's not going to, Robert Thompson's not going to back, Shaw's gone. Yes, but you're right, the three that come back, they're not too far off the pace tonight, will make them significantly better.
So can they get Jetta through tomorrow? And would they play him off one game? That's their only question really. They can't be playing Goods next week. The best they could do with Goods would be 2 or 3, and I don't think we'll see Goods. But Jetta's sort of the one who sits there. If they could get him through tomorrow, would they be prepared to bring him in for Cunningham and take their chances?
As a sub, possibly.
As a sub, I was going to say exactly the same. Stephen, you think that, they're thinking?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Possibly.
But you are at risk if you cop an injury early and then you have to get him into the game early. That is a risk.
Well, we read in the pre-match interview that he thinks he's a bit susceptible too, and that he probably need a couple of weeks in build-up and not just come back on
Ideally.
one. But he is important in this side. And they've tried to use Gary Rowan. Remember, they put him deep at the start, hoping on the push-up that he get one over the top. It worked on one occasion, I think, only. He did kick a couple of goals, but from that situation, I think Rowan, is probably playing as well as he can with the preparation that he hasn't had. And this is all about seasons based for a club on the preparation you get. A season for a player individually is based on the preparation he gets way back between November and February. You can't generate it for some reason.
Can't catch up.
You can't catch up, and you're always struggling to get there. So Jetta becomes, in my opinion, a real risk if he comes in for the reasons that we've given.
Hawthorn get back Guerra and Rioli if we were taking a stab.
Yeah, and the kid
and
did
Bailey.
Young can never think of it. Jiraiya, young Jiraiya did okay in a couple of bursts, but the other bloke can do all that Jiraiya can do and more. Probably a better, he's left footer too, but a more reliable kick. So you'd think, Jared, that they'd, in experience and know-how and finals performance, he's going to make them better, no doubt. If Bailey comes up with that's 2. There's no doubt the little fella, he'll worry the heck out of them.
Yep.
I hope he's there because I selfishly want to watch him play. So you'd think that the pluses for Hawthorn would almost equal the ins for Sydney. Is that reasonable? Particularly if Bailey comes, because Bailey will help to nullify one of the absolute smashings they got, in my opinion, in ruck contests.
I suppose the only thing Hawthorn don't have is another spread player, and Hanbury's another one who can spread on them. At times, Hawthorn look flat-footed and very worried about the spread from the contest. But if they can win their fair share of clearances with Bailey back, that's not so much of a worry.
No. Well, I was a bit concerned. I must admit, I watched the young boy tonight very closely, Anderson, and he's not aware. He's yet to become a full understanding of what's happening around him. Yeah, and I think Savage might be better, but Savage really struggled. Hill did a bit better, I thought, as the game went, but you can't carry 3 or 4 of those blokes who are dead set outside carriers, can't win their own ball and can't contest and hit hard in the way that the inside players, all of those midfielders, including Hanbury when he comes back in, is a gutsy little physical player inside. Can't say that for the boys. Puopolo's gained his one real gain in the midfield who plays that way. I think that's been a fantastic, and he's got a bit of toe too, so he can get out as well as win the stuff inside. Yeah, it'll be interesting sitting around the selection table for both clubs as they go through what we've been trying to go through on the outside. I reckon they'll have just as much trouble, Jared, as we have in getting the best 22 onto the MCG next Friday night.
Yep, and how much you're prepared to gamble in a qualifying final given the riches of having a week off or the cost coming back the other way if you...
No, you gamble.
Yeah, that's the one weekend you gamble with everything.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have to say that as a coach, but we gamble on that one. That's the one that you've got to get home.
That's what the double chance is for.
Sometimes it misfires and it costs you dearly, but it's a great reward if you get through that one.
It's the Hawks by 12 points over the Swans. We'll head downstairs. Shannon Burners with Sean Burgoyne.
Yes, thanks, Jared. Sean Burgoyne's just come out of, I don't know, is it a lengthy meeting there with Alistair Clarkson? He took you guys straight into the rooms after the song. What did he have to say?
Yeah, no, it was just a quick one, just to touch base on, we got that win out of the way. It wasn't pretty, took us a while to get going, and, just look forward to next week. Let's get a good recovery session in now and, get probably a couple of good nights sleep now. I think we may be Friday night next week, so... we really want to recover well from this game.
Against the Swans again?
Yeah, against the Swans again. So said to a couple of boys out there, see you again next week, which is a bit weird.
And just on that, I guess your start you mentioned there, not the one that Alistair and your boys wanted. What do you put it down to? Was it a slow start from you guys, or were you just jumped by the Swans?
I think a bit of everything. Jumped by them. It's the first time a lot of our guys have played here. We had to get used to the oval. It was a bit slippery and different dimensions. So, so add those things together and they come out fired up as well. So, I think the positive take out of it is we didn't play that good a footy and we still managed to scrap out a win. So that's probably a positive we'll take out of it.
And I guess probably a couple of changes from when you played them in round 7 as well. You know, they've had a change of personnel as well. So what homework were you able to do, I guess, even on someone like their young bigs?
Yeah, well, we got to look at a couple of the younger guys. Obviously Tippett being out, and they had a different forward structure probably. And we got a couple of guys who'll come back in next week as well. So both teams will probably change up a fair bit as well. So it's going to be an interesting week, that's for sure.
Boys have got the headset up to you. And Stephen, I told him that you were upstairs as well, and you probably got the biggest and most surprise reaction that you're upstairs with us.
G'day, Shawnee.
G'day, Gilly.
Well done tonight, mate.
No, thanks, mate. It was a tough win.
Yeah, you played a few roles, mate. Really enjoyed your game in the midfield. They needed you in there, mate, in the second half. Yeah, it was a bit like that. The second half we had to change things around because things weren't quite working. Hodgie came back, went in midfield, and we saw Spanger forward mid-back as well. So it was good in the second half to throw things around, and add that versatility, because we're going to need that again next week, because not everything's going to work, and you got to have plan B and C up your sleeve. So that's exactly what we had to do tonight. And lucky for us, we got a few guys in our team who can play all 3 roles, mid, forward, and back.
Shawnee, David Parker, you're absolutely right, isn't it? The team, you don't talk much about swingmen these days, people who go back and forth, but Hawthorn have got about 5 or 6 of those. I mean, you've played, particularly against Sydney, I've seen you play back and I've seen you play forward and spend a fair bit of time in the midfield, not just tonight, but over the multiple games that you played against Sydney. Yeah,
exactly. Well, Hodgie does it most weeks as well, plays forward, mid-back, myself, we had Whitecross.
Yep.
We got a number of these young guys that can go in the midfield as well. So I think it adds great versatility, for Clarko to know when things aren't working, you can change it around, because you're not going to get everything your own way, for the entire game. So as long as your players know the structures, embrace the roles, it should work out all right. And I've been doing that now for the last year or two, so has Hodgie. So
and even Sam Mitchell, who played tonight, bit up half back, bit in the middle, bit at half forward. He's the same way.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to have a couple of roles up your sleeve as well as a player. You can't be that one-dimensional player. You've got to have a second role up your sleeve, because you can't play 4 quarters on ball, or high half back or high half forward. There's a lot of running. So you just got to have that versatility in your own game. So
One, Shawnee, I'm not criticising everybody heavily, but we really did miss Max Bailey tonight. I mean, his centre. You don't realise until he's not there how good he is as an attacking, if you like, ruckman who gives you a listen. But we were running second a lot because Mumford and Pike seemed to get a hand on the ball, particularly at centre bounces.
Yeah, exactly. Max, he's a big lump of a lad, 6'8" or something.
Yep.
He gives us good use of the ball when he's in the ruck. But for a big guy, his second and third efforts around the ground as well, like when he's on his hands and knees trying to get the contested ball for us as well, it's very underrated, and internally we rate that very high. So we probably missed his second and third efforts around the ball as well. He's going to put his hand up for selection again this week, and it's going to be interesting. Like I said, Shields and Rioli will put their hands up again, and so will Bailey.
It'll be hard to get a game, Sean.
Yeah, I think this is why the coach gets paid the big bucks, to make those hard decisions. So, those guys are going to come to training this week, and they're going to be jumping out their skins to try to get their spot back. So,
and there's no doubt about, do you think Rioli and Bailey, two that are very important? Do you think that'd be right?
Yeah, obviously they're quality players. Cyril speaks for himself.
They'll be right though. They'll come up, you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon they will.
Yep.
It's a final. This is why you play footy.
True.
When you have a look back over the home and away season, Sean, that campaign is done. 23 weeks, you've gone 19-3. Do you feel like you've done everything to present yourselves into September in the best possible way?
Yeah, we have. I think we've set ourselves up very nicely. We made a big thing of interstate wins. I think we're 8-0 this year, and that really sets us up. So we've really put ourselves in a good position. We get a home final. This is the exact position we wanted to be in come this time of year, and hopefully we get those, like I said before, we get those couple of guys back this week, and then we should have a number of players to pick from. So I think we probably tweak things a bit this year and try to time our run a bit better than last year. So hopefully we can play our best, give ourselves our best opportunity to play our best footy in these last 4 weeks of the year.
So if you take that as a personal proposition, do you feel that way? Do you feel fresh and ready to play your best?
Yeah, well, unfortunately I had a 2-week suspension a couple of weeks ago, so I had a rest. We had Hodgie have a rest a couple of weeks ago with a surgery. A couple of guys in and out with some niggly injuries here and there. So as a player, like we had a number of players have a rest over the last probably 6 weeks. So we've been able to rotate our list a little and give ourselves the best opportunity to pick a fresh team for this first final.
And I know you mentioned it was weird before. You play the same team in 7 days' time, which doesn't happen at any other time. What does that mean? How do you sort of go about it? Do you take all the lessons out of tonight? Do you treat it as a broader proposition? How will you approach that, do you think?
Well, you basically you get a bit of an idea how they played the last second half of the year, because you take a little bit out of this game because you don't change your game style too much. It's got you in this position, to finish in the top 4 position. So you have a look at all of it. But then, once the game starts next week, you just go all out again. You forget about playing, this game, and you just come out ready to go. So, we're very aware they're going to get some players back next week as well, which will change the lineup. But we'll probably just continue to worry about our team and get ourselves as best prepared this week as possible.
Sean, mate, are they a good team to play against?
Yeah, they are. They're a quality team. They play very, very tough contested footy, and they run hard. So we know what's in front of us.
Yep.
We got a good look at it last year in the grand final, and we got to look at it again tonight. And next week's going to be just the same, a fierce contested footy. And it's going to be a couple of goals in it as well. We're under no illusions that there's going to be a blowout in the game whatsoever. It's going to be a tight, tough game, and hopefully, we can get the job done.
We'll all be there for it. Good on you, Sean. Good luck.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
Sean Burgoyne with us in the Hawthorn rooms. The Hawks by 12 points over the Swans.